And a hot new book about the O.J. Simpson trial, this one a novel. The author, Dominic Dunn, is our guest. It's all next on Larry King Live.
Now, live in Washington, here's Larry King.
Good evening. Today in Kent, Washington, an extraordinary court case drew to a close. Mary Kay Letourneau, a popular teacher in suburban Seattle, was sentenced to 6 months in jail, ordered into a 3-year sex offender treatment program. She pled guilty in August to 2 counts of second-degree child rape after admitting she'd had sex with one of her students. The boy that Letourneau carried on a relationship was 13 years old at the time, and last May, she gave birth to that boy's child, a baby girl. Mary Kay Letourneau was married at the time of the affair and had 4 children. Today, she pleaded with the judge to give her a chance to restore her life.
Your Honor, I did something that I had no right to do, morally or legally. It was wrong, and I am sorry. I give you my word that it will not happen again. Please, please help me. Help us all.
As part of her sentence, Mary Kay is barred from any contact with the teenage boy and their daughter. Tonight, we're joined by Mary Kay Letourneau's attorney, David Gerke, and Robert Huff, the attorney for the victim. They are both with us from Seattle. We thank you both for joining us at the top of the program. David, were you surprised that the judge was pretty much in accord with what you wanted?
When you get to that stage of the proceedings, you're not surprised, but you're by no means confident. If you can't go into that thinking you're ahead 60-40, 55-45, you can't convince the judge that there's merit to your side. And I felt we had an edge, but you always have to temper that with your own personal belief that you have to be effective.
Now, Robert
I was very relieved.
Robert Huff, you represented the young man, right?
Young man's family, yes, Larry.
And they are not mad at the defendant, correct?
Makes it a very unusual case. It's rare that the defense attorney and the attorney for the victim's family can sit on the same stage and say, we both won.
And why, Robert, was the victim, in your mind, not a victim?
More than in my mind, Larry, in his family's mind. His mother is a remarkable woman. She was very upset at first and had not an overnight conversion, but through faith and through her, I guess, generosity of heart, came to forgive Mary. She also, I think, had the wisdom not to portray her son as a victim, because as we've seen even some experts say, it's not necessarily the best thing for the quote-unquote victim in this instance to make him feel like a victim.
Yeah. Now, David, she will have to serve how many more days under this sentence?
She's got credit for 100 days. She's got about 3 more months to go, just under that, and she'll be released to an approved housing placement, and everything she does for the next 3 years will be monitored, pre-approved, checked on, and subject to polygraphs.
She cannot see the baby who's being raised by the victims, for want of a better term, parents. She cannot see her 13-year-old friend. She can't see any of those people.
She cannot see the 13-year-old boy, now 14, for the maximum term allowed by law, which is 10 years. The community, the Child Protective Service, the family court people, and some of our own experts thought it was appropriate for Mary to see her infant right away, but this type of confusion led to some accusations that she was not compliant with court orders, and I asked the court to order absolutely no contact until her treatment provider feels it is appropriate. And hopefully, as regards the young baby, that will be in a matter of weeks.
Robert Huff, was it not the medical experts and the judges going that way that swayed the day, wasn't it?
You know, Larry, sitting there in the courtroom, I was seated behind the boy's mother. It was very brave of her, I thought, and it was a big effort for her to come out in public like that with all the attention and cameras and so on. She's a very private person. There were some very powerful moments. Her statement, Mary Letourneau's statement, some of the experts. I thought the defense, Mr. Gerke's team, had a very effective expert, Dr. Moore, who spoke very clearly and persuasively, I think, to the court.
We will be devoting much more time to this in the days ahead. It's a fascinating case, but in our closing moments with David and Robert. David, what happens to her life? I mean, she can't see her own child. Her husband left her, right? So the children she raised, they're gone. She can't see her baby. What's life going to be like for her?
It's not going to be pleasant. The people that say she got off easy, they don't realize that she can do nothing without multiple layers of permission. Everywhere she goes, when she goes out and applies for a job, the first thing she has to say is, I'm the convicted child rapist. I can't work with the public. I can't be around children, and I can't do anything off-site. Will you hire me? And if she doesn't get a job, she can't pay for treatment. If she doesn't pay for treatment, she goes to prison. She did not get off lightly. She has a vigorous, it's better than prison, but she has a very strenuous confinement to her.
And Robert Huff, what's the mental stability, if want of a better term, of the boy?
I'd say, Larry, I saw him last night, as a matter of fact. He was in good spirits. The family has focused him into many activities that any 14-year-old would do.
But he has a young daughter at home, right?
Daughter's at home, bouncing around in a bouncer.
Does he feel like a father?
A walker. I think in a way he does, as much as a 14-year-old can. He's very proud of his baby. The whole family, there's an extended family, and they all dote over the baby.
If loving you is wrong, I don't want to be right. If being right means being without you, I'd rather live a wrongdoing life. Your mom and daddy say it's a shame, it's a downright disgrace. But long as I got you by my side, I don't care what your people say. Your friends tell you it's no future in love and marriage.
Sang that thing, Luther. It is a disgrace, though. A low-down disgrace. Katherine, Massey, Book Club, Context of White Supremacy, the Worthless Negro from Virginia, a.k.a. the Black O.J. Simpson, Gus T. Renegade, in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the global system of white supremacy, racism, information for non-white people, victims of white supremacy. Today's date, so-called holiday, July 4, 2025, so I have been told sobriety would be best. Our second installment, child rapist, Mary Kay Letourneau, reading Gregg Olsen's book, If Loving You Is Wrong. We are picking up on chapter 7. We started today. Classic. The late Larry King, who we've heard talk about a lot of different. We heard Larry King talking about Jeff Dahmer, and he asked old Lionel, he said, is Jeff Dahmer a racist? Get my Milwaukee plug in, see? And then, obviously, we heard old Larry King talking about Renthal James. Larry King seemed certain, almost like he was out in Brentwood. You know Renthal James did some stabbing and slicing. You know he killed that white woman. No, I don't know that, Larry King. But anyway, that was Larry King. So this was the first time around. This was before we found out that she was a recalcitrant white child rapist. Mary Kay, this was the first time when she got convicted. Said, I ain't gonna do it no more. I ain't gonna do it no more. I'm sorry. It's a disgrace. I ain't gonna do it no more. Lie. And so they brought both the prosecuting and defense attorneys on. And you hear Larry King. Larry said, for lack of a better term, victim. He's not really a victim. In fact, he say, the experts say it would be best not to call Vili a victim. Say, wait a minute, you mean the 12-year-old that the white teacher, 30-year-old, was raping? You don't call him a victim. How in the world? Isn't that familiar when you get in there? See, I say this case is white supremacy racism. That's a big one right there. What do you mean calling yourself a victim of rape? What do you mean victim? You're a survivor. You got that old disgraceful defeatist attitude. Don't they say that all the time? I know they said that to me. I know Neely Fuller Jr., part of why we're reading this, he said they would tell that to him all the time. You old goofy Negro, you know, you Okies from Oklahoma out here talking all this nonsense. I'm a victim of racism from Muskogee. Okay, get on out of here, Fuller. He said they said all the time. He said, well, wait a minute. Am I a victim? Do they mistreat me? Yes. Wait a minute, Vili. Let's just do the math on this thing. Math is important. Let's do the math on this thing. What is the age for consent? Age of consent is 16. Oh, okay. Were you 16? No. Victim of child. See, they don't like non-white people. Don't be saying that you are a victim and no white person mistreated you. What do you mean? That old Mary Kay just wanted to give a little loving, a little tenderness. Go out fishing. Show you the best that Seattle has to offer. You calling yourself a victim. What? It's layers of disgraceful activity around this here thing. And again, this is the first time around. And what they're going to say when they come back the second time around, like, oh, Lord, she recalcitrant. Oh, Lord, she done raped him again. Well, is he a victim now? Who are these experts, by the way? Did they get Al Sharpton? Diddy? Who did they get to come and say it would be best not to call this non-white, non-black 12-year-old a victim of child rape? We don't want to call him that. That's just adding insult to it. He's a survivor or a champion or... come on. And then Larry, he's going to say, hey, does he feel like a father? Are you serious? I don't even feel like a freshman in high school. I should feel like a victim of child rape, but y'all say that ain't the correct title either, so I guess, you know. How about victim of racism? They said even his mom, they said the parents said, oh no, he's not a victim, and we've come to have a change of heart about all this. Maybe they got pressured by white people. It does not get any better than tacky, and this here thing is extra tacky and racist. Katherine Massey Book Club. Gregg Olsen, if loving you is wrong. Talking about Mary Kay. Audio segment 1.
Chapter 7. By the summer of 1982, things had changed dramatically for both Carla's mother and daughter. At age 43, Carla Stuckle had given birth to her second child by John Schmitz, a baby girl she named Eugenie, or Jeannie. She told no one at El Toro who the father was, nor did she reveal it to the women she worked with at the Santa Ana answering service where she took messages on the weekend. Carla Stuckle's daughter, Carla Larson, had a child of her own by then, a son, the same age as John George Bostrom. For a time, the 23-year-old cared for her half-brother and half-sister in her base housing, but it became too much, and she told her mother she needed to make child-care arrangements. Her mother was angry at first, complaining bitterly that babysitters' fees would send her to the poorhouse. She was already late on her mortgage, and other bills were piling up. One afternoon in late July, Carla Larson got a phone call from her mother, who was crying and saying something about her son's penis being injured. "What? How in the hell did that happen?" the younger woman asked. She was in shock. Did it get caught in something? Carla Stuckle didn't have any answers. She sobbed some words into the phone and told her daughter that the baby was in microsurgery to repair the damage. "Mother, tell me what happened," the younger woman asked once more, this time using more soothing tones in an attempt to calm her mother. "I took him to the doctor," Carla Stuckle said. He said the baby has a hair wrapped around his penis and it had been there for some time. Oh, my God. Don't you ever bathe him? How could this have happened? Carla didn't have an answer. She muttered a quiet, "I don't know." Carla Larson hung up the phone and made quick plans to go see her baby brother at Children's Hospital. When she arrived, she found the boy asleep in a little crib, unaware of the problem that had brought him there. He was bandaged. Carla Larson couldn't get a look at him to see what in the world her mother was talking about. The nurses said nothing. Back home, she got another call from her mother. "They aren't going to let me take him home," she said. "What are you talking about? They're saying I did something to him." "What do you mean?" "That I wrapped hair around his penis." Carla Stuckle told her daughter that she had done nothing wrong but was in big trouble. She had no idea what would happen to her or her son. She was tired and upset. Sadly, suspected child abuse calls were commonplace in Orange County, and indeed in every jurisdiction in America. But a doctor calling from the Children's Hospital reported a most unusual injury. A hair had been wound around and tied so tightly to the little boy's penis that the member had nearly been severed. Tustin Police Detective Jim Hine answered the call and immediately went to the hospital. The doctor explained that such injuries were not completely unknown. Human hair or similar fibers can work themselves into the folds of skin in a baby's diaper area, causing ulceration and infection. But this was quite severe. The boy's penis had been so damaged that he urinated out a gash in the side of it. What was unusual here, the doctor told me, the detective said many years later, was that the hair had been tied in a square knot. It had been deliberate. He wanted the hair as evidence, but it had been discarded during the reattachment surgery. "You've got to do something," the doctor said. "Well, you sure didn't help me by disposing of the hair." Doctor and detective were mortified at the extent of the injury. Although the surgery appeared to be a success, both men couldn't help but worry about the boy's future. Who was the boy's father? Neither Carla Stuckle nor her daughter and reluctant protector would say. Custody issues were at stake. The detective was convinced that Carla had injured her son, that it was not a freak accident. Jim Hine returned to her house at Drayton Way for an answer. It was a square knot, for crying out loud. Carla Stuckle, looking a bit worn and weary, led him inside and offered him a seat. Under suspicion for child abuse, Carla didn't seem too concerned. She almost seemed relieved that her son was at the Albert Sitten home getting care, while she went on with the business of taking care of her baby daughter, Eugenie. She wasn't evasive either. She just seemed to be slow, speaking in a cadence all her own. Detective Hine figured there wasn't much chalk on that blackboard. Even so, he wanted her to talk. He needed to know who the baby's father was. That might lead to an answer. He pressed the point and even threatened her. "Until we find out and get this thing all done, you're going to jail. Chances are you'll never see your son again. Tell me who the father is so I can help place the boy back with the father. Tell me." Carla looked blank. She stared past the cop as if there were something of great interest on the wall behind him. Finally, she moved her thin lips. "Well, it's John Schmitz." "John Schmitz?" "John Schmitz, the senator." Jim Hine was dumbfounded. He repeated the name, and Carla Stuckle nodded. He figured the woman was out to lunch, a nut, a troublemaker, certifiable. She had made it up to make trouble or get money from the politician. He didn't even think it close to true, but she went on. She said they had been lovers for years, that both her son and daughter were John Schmitz's progeny. Carla Stuckle told the detective how she and the senator would rendezvous at various hotels when he was traveling. "He told me that wherever he was, that I was to meet him there," she said. She talked about his family, how his wife and children didn't know. It would be a big shock to so many. And though she protested the release of his name, her demeanor suggested otherwise. She wants the information out. She wants the world to know. Jim Hine had a hard time believing it. The woman was so haggard. Why in the world would John Schmitz want to meet up with her at some hotel? Political people normally have the pick of the litter, so to speak. If they want to go out and play games, they don't have any problem finding someone to play with. Why he would pick something like that, I can never figure out, Hine said later. The only thing that occurred to me was that she had to be a demon in bed. The Tustin police detective drove away to find John Schmitz. He left messages all over town, his office, his home, anywhere he could imagine. But Schmitz never called back. The case brought the inevitable headlines in papers all over the country. The senator who espoused family values was a phony, a hypocrite. Even the Tustin News weighed in. Mother arrested for child neglect. 13-month-old victim, allegedly son of Senator Schmitz. Mary Kay Schmitz was a 20-year-old student at Orange Coast College just down the road from Corona del Mar when the scandal first broke. The seriousness of the allegations did not hit her right away. She didn't see it for what it was. "It never crossed my mind," she said later of her father having an affair with Carla Stuckle. "Even when she first saw it on the news. I thought, my father is such a good man. She's having some legal problems and he's helping her out. That's all it is." But it was more than that, of course. And no one in the family knew it had been going on for so long. Who could conceive of such subterfuge? Surprisingly, not Cake, who, as the girl most likely to, had become adept at preserving a perfect image. Not even Mary Schmitz, who went on TV as queen of family values and the champion of brightly burning home fires. No one. Chapter 8. It was at a John Birch Society meeting out in Orange County that Detective Hine cornered the politician with the paternity problem. The detective wanted to know if John Schmitz really was the father, and, more importantly, as far as the child abuse investigation was concerned, whether he knew anything about the injury. He identified himself and told the state senator what Carla Stuckle had said. "She's in trouble," the cop said. "The boy is in the hospital." For all his well-known charisma, John Schmitz was oddly flat in his response. "Yes, I know." "Well, is it your son?" "Yes, he is, but I do not and will not support him financially. It is her responsibility to take care of them." John Schmitz said he didn't know anything about the hair on the baby's penis, and that was that. The detective didn't let on, but he couldn't believe his ears. Here was this man, the ultraconservative politician who told everyone to take responsibility for their families, and he had 2 children by some woman in a tract home in Tustin. For Carla Stuckle, at least according to her eldest daughter, the fact that her children's father had been exposed brought relief. She thought that John Schmitz would be forced into a decision. He had to choose her or marry. She, after all, was the one with the little babies. She was gleeful, Carla Larson recalled. She said, "Well, now he won't be able to get out of it, will he?" It irritated Carla Stuckle that John Schmitz hadn't been man enough to acknowledge his children. Even after they were born, he refused to tell his wife that he had been unfaithful. The media crush was torturous. Cameras were everywhere. Reporters hid in the bushes. Only once did Carla Larson speak to the press. "I'm very upset at Senator Schmitz for not showing his face and standing by my mother. They are his children, too," she said later. Detective Hine drove up from the beach to Spyglass Hill. He had a few more things to ask John Schmitz about the potential child abuse against little John, but the man who loved the spotlight had made himself scarce. Mary Schmitz was home, however. Mary was cool and polite. She reacted in a way that suggested the events had no impact on her. She said as much. "I love him, and I'm standing by him," she said. She said she knew he had a mistress, but that was no concern of hers. In fact, all of it was John's problem. She was rather indignant that she was brought into it at all. It was something her husband did and this other woman. It was their affair, the detective recalled later. He left Spyglass and drove down toward the ocean highway, thinking that Mary and John Schmitz had some kind of bizarre understanding. It appeared to the detective that Mrs. Schmitz had known about the affair and didn't care. If any in his inner circle knew that he had been carrying on with Carla Stuckle for all those years, they never let on, then or years later. Tom Rogers, close friend and one-time campaign finance manager, had no inkling that John Schmitz had played that kind of game. He'd been around politicians for 20 years and had seen dozens who played the field when their wives were back home taking care of the family. Politicians, by their nature, tend to be flirtatious and charming, feeding on the adulation of the people around them. John had an ego the size of California, but he wasn't any bed-hopper. Though it was never an area they discussed, Tom Rogers tried to figure out how it could have happened with John Schmitz. Maybe somebody who's egotistical has this kind of admiration or adoration of a woman. She took night classes. She thought he was everything. John was susceptible to that because he thought really everyone ought to figure he's that good, Rogers recalled. Some wondered how he had time for 2 families. It was true he had twice as much energy as most, and seemed tireless on the campaign trail or hammering out a deal in the legislature late into the night. But 2 families? How could he have kept it so secret? Though they did not talk about the Stuckle affair, St. Cecilia choir director Richard Kulda was struck by how John Schmitz exhibited no shame or repentance over what happened. He was the same charming person as always. There's something that he did a marvelous job of hiding from all the rest of us, possibly even from himself for many years, he said later. As the choir director from St. Cecilia considered it, there was no question John Schmitz had lied with the same facility as he employed when he told the truth. He didn't want to put the label pathological liar on the man he had admired for so many years, but Richard Kulda thought it might be within the realm of the man's personality. It is possible there is some of that in John. It is possible that Mary Kay could be that way too, he said. Chapter 9. Even when the newspaper and television reporters made her out to be a child abuser, the perpetrator of an unspeakable act, she tied a hair around her son's penis. Carla Stuckle continued to put the blame for the affair on Mary Schmitz. Mary hadn't been giving her husband what he needed at home. Carla had a deep hatred for Mary Schmitz. They had carried on the affair for so long, for so many years, that the woman had to be an idiot or completely blind to have missed it. Where had she thought her husband was when she was in bed in the little house on Drayton Way? Carla Larson, through her own observations and through what her mother told her, didn't get a sense that Mary Schmitz cared one way or another. She had seen Mr. and Mrs. Schmitz at gatherings in public and at their home in Corona del Mar. I never got the sense that Mary truly loved John. I saw them together a lot at political fundraisers. Have you ever watched Hillary Clinton looking at Bill Clinton? That gaze. Mary never ever demonstrated that gaze. She was always looking elsewhere to see who was looking at her. Carla thought her mother was wrong to think that Mary didn't know about the affair. The woman wasn't stupid, just pragmatic. I think Mary knew. Maybe she didn't want to give up what she had and her position and social status. It was very important for her to be the wife of a senator, she said later. John Schmitz had a lot of friends, and most stood by him during the Stuckle affair in 1982. Some figured that he wasn't getting what he needed from Mary, and it didn't surprise them that he went out looking for it elsewhere. What did raise a few eyebrows was his woman of choice. Most considered Carla Stuckle a step down from what he could have been sleeping with. Carla Larson, bitter over her mother's abandonment, would find her already tenuous loyalty wearing thin. At times, she felt sorry for Schmitz. He was trapped. He was trapped from the first time they went to coffee after class. When she stuck around to have a conversation with him and he suggested they go somewhere to talk outside the classroom, he was trapped, she said later. Yet the young woman also found room to blame John a little, too. Several times she thought of confronting him and telling him that it takes 2 to make such a mess. You were the idiot that didn't learn from the first mistake. You kept coming around. You didn't have to. You could have said, "This is enough, woman," she thought. The media had a field day with the two-timing politician. Camera crews staked out 10 Mission Bay Drive and didn't leave. John Schmitz never commented on the affair, and his wife did little more than laugh it off as her husband's problem. For those who knew them, and those who thought they knew John, there were broken hearts all over Orange County. I could just see what they were doing. They were all holding hands, praying for God's deliverance from this plague on their house. And John's leading the sermon, said Hank Springer, the liberal yin to Mary Schmitz's conservative yang, on their TV show Free for All. I felt so sorry for Mary. She didn't deserve this. Look at the hell he brought down on his family. Hank Springer later saw great relevance in the scandal, almost a foreshadowing of what would happen to John Schmitz's oldest daughter a decade and a half later. It was in her genes. It was a lesson learned. Somewhere there was meaning for Mary Kay in what happened with her father and Carla Stuckle. They came from a family that whatever they did didn't matter. It was okay, that God would find a way. They could be purified in this fervor they had, this self-righteousness. The rules are not for them, not for him. Hank Springer couldn't recall seeing Mary Schmitz after the scandal. He doubted that she taped another Free for All. Eventually, they put the Spyglass Hill house on the market, and they slipped out of town for Washington. It was the final chapter. Mary started a career selling real estate for psychic and broker Gene Dixon in Washington, D.C., and John moved into a trailer in a Tustin trailer park to finish out the time he needed for his teaching pension. His political days were over, and his wife's star had been extinguished. She would have been the grande dame of Orange County, said a friend of Mary Schmitz's. She would have been. Mary Kay felt sorry for her mother, father, and Carla Stuckle, and the invasive publicity that came with the scandal. My father has a human side, an intimate side to him, too. That does not belong in the public. It should be kept private. He has needs, and I don't mean sexual, that are no one's business. I never asked about it, and it wasn't my place to ask about it. It was none of my business. Carla Stuckle was living a hand-to-mouth existence and wanted child support for her 2 children. John Schmitz had given his mistress a few dollars on an occasional basis, but it wasn't enough, and Carla made no bones about it. John offered me the magnificent sum of $200 a month for them, she told a reporter when she was threatening to sue. She thought $500 was more reasonable. For God's sake, she was living in a modest home in Tustin, while his other kids had been raised in the splendor of Spyglass Hill. She wasn't being greedy, she said. She didn't want to have to work a second job at the answering service in Santa Ana. John Schmitz had always told Carla that a formal agreement hadn't been possible because Mary Schmitz controlled the purse strings. But with their relationship out in the open, Carla saw no reason why she had to beg for money. Mary Schmitz reportedly held her ground. She was unwilling to change her lifestyle to help him pay, Carla Stuckle said. In the end, however, John Schmitz was ordered by the court to pay $275 a month. The Schmitz family's downward spiral continued after Carla Stuckle's name faded from the headlines. The family focused its attention on Mary Kay's favorite brother, Jerry, a 23-year-old Scientologist living in San Francisco. In January 1983, Mary Schmitz and her 2 oldest sons had drawn a line in the sand with a bulldozer, with the Church of Scientology and son Jerry Schmitz on the other side. They said they thought Jerry had been brainwashed by the church. He wouldn't listen to reason. He wouldn't forsake Scientology for Catholicism. He wouldn't leave his staff job for the church in San Francisco. What was wrong with him? Why won't he come to his senses? They thought. Mary Schmitz threatened to sue the church and asked political crony Jesse Helms to launch a congressional probe. Her son was a victim. He barely slept and worked all the time on Scientology activities. I'd like to get him out of the clutches of this beast. Jerry can't be himself. He seems to be wholly unproductive, she told a reporter. Son Joe, then a 26-year-old Navy officer, weighed in, too. He characterized his younger brother's responses to criticism as angry and irrational. It was clear to those who knew the family that it was Mary Schmitz who led the charge. She just didn't get it. Her son was happy. He wasn't a zombie. Of all the boys, he marched to a drummer none could comprehend. He wasn't like the high-powered John and Joe. He was Jerry. Couldn't she see the difference? During the Scientology ordeal, Mary Kay had been kept in the dark. Her brother, the family member she was closest to, the one she would later say was second in importance in her life only to the boy who would change her life, never mentioned their mother's crusade. Neither did their parents. "It is something we just never talked about," she said later. The felony child neglect charges against Carla Stuckle were eventually dropped, and she was put on 6 months of social service agency supervision. But the indignities continued. The Schmitz boys and their father had a meeting at Carla's home after the dust had settled, and there was no longer any media interest in the case. One of the boys proposed to Carla that the best thing for everyone would be to put the children up for adoption. Best for who? Carla Larsen, the oldest daughter, later said when she learned of the plan. "Can you imagine the gall? As if my mother didn't love those children." And if that was the Schmitz style, to sweep the mess under the rug and avoid any further embarrassment, it was insulting to the woman John Schmitz had said he loved. "I nearly threw him out of my house," Carla Stuckle told her daughter. "John didn't say anything then, but later told me he didn't like that idea and knew I wouldn't go for it." Chapter 10. Both Mary Kay Schmitz Letourneau and Carla Bostrom Stuckle would feel abandoned by John Schmitz at critical times of their lives. Mary Kay needed her father by her side when her world was unraveling and her own personal scandal was sucking her down like a whirlpool. Carla needed John's support when she had the gall to let the world know she'd borne his children he ignored. Carla and Mary Kay had barely talked in their entire lives, but they shared something very deep. They both had been hurt by the man they loved more than any other. In little more than 10 years' time, their lives would end up in devastating tragedy. Carla Stuckle did her best to hang on to all she had, her children. Despite working 2 jobs, she was nearly destitute. Her beige stucco house was being foreclosed. Her gas service for her water heater had been shut off, so she resorted to heating water on the stove for bathing. Her swimming pool had been drained because her pump was broken and she couldn't afford to repair it. She was gaunt, alone, and bitter. The children hadn't received as much as a card or a phone call from their father for months, not even at Christmas or on their birthdays. She told a reporter in early 1984 that, "Long after I'm gone, we'll know the reason these children were born. I didn't go through all of this for nothing." For the rest of her life, Carla Stuckle was a tragic figure. Though she was seen at the Tustin trailer park where John Schmitz lived while finishing up his remaining time for his pension, she eventually dropped off the face of the earth. Ailing with the diabetes that ravaged her in her 40s, Carla Vern Stuckle had reclaimed her maiden name by the time she came to live in a Midwestern Catholic care community with her children, then 12 and 10, in 1993. She was at the end of the line. Carla was found dead a year later in her apartment. She was only 56. No family other than her son and youngest daughter attended her funeral. And while one would have hoped John Schmitz would have taken in John and Jeannie, he did not. Oddly, it was Mary Schmitz's close friend Jean Dixon who assumed guardianship of the boy and girl. When the famed astrologer died in 1997, Carla's children were made wards of the state. They now live in an orphanage. The contact with their half-siblings has been sporadic at best. Mary Kay, for one, never visited John or Jeannie. Some of the Schmitz children, the younger ones, have come out to see the kids, but Mary Schmitz has forbidden it. "I don't think she knows about it," said the spokesman. Gifts have been sent. Mary Kay's childhood friend Michelle Jarvis often wonders what happened to John and Jeannie Bostrom. Not long after the affair between John Schmitz and Carla Stuckle hit the papers, It seemed that the mother and her babies simply disappeared. But John and Jeannie were half-siblings to the Schmitz kids, after all. And in many families, that was good enough to be called brother and sister. When she asked Mary Kay about it, the answer came through loud and clear. Mary Schmitz had forbidden any relationship with those children. Mary Kay, in fact, had never laid eyes on the children, with the exception of seeing John in his mother's arms at church. Mary Kay told me they had been back east for Christmas, and her mother basically said that none of them could contact those children or have anything to do with them. Michelle thought Mary Kay's mother's edict was sick, and told her friend so. "If it was my family," she said later, "I'd tell my mother to, go and you-know-what herself, and I would go and help those children. They're in an orphanage, and they've got family. That's sickening. What does John do? Nothing. His kids are in an orphanage, and he does nothing." Those who joined in making the "apple doesn't fall far from the tree" analysis of Mary Kay Letourneau's behavior weren't that far off the mark, according to friends of the teacher in trouble. "Look at the parallels with her father," college roommate Kate Stewart said in the living room of her Chicago home one afternoon in the fall of 1998. "I think that Mary Kay probably has her father's personality, the risk-taking, and his ideals. Here she is in prison, and she's not going to be defeated, and she still turns around and says to the people there, 'Screw it, I'm not doing that.' It didn't matter to Mary Kay if her defiance only made things worse for her, first in jail and later in prison. She was the type who had to prove a point. 'Listen,' Kate once said, trying to get her college friend to make things easier on herself, 'it's not going to get you anywhere there.'" Carla Larson, Carla Stuckel's daughter, had some hard times in her life, marriages that didn't work out, periods of poverty during which she and her son, Carl, lived with her father in Montana. There were times when she and her son lived on peanut butter sandwiches and kept their fingers crossed that times would get better, and they did. By 1994, Carla Larson had purchased a little house in Hamilton, Montana, just south of Victor, where her relatives lived. The house was nothing special, except that it was hers. It had a view of the Hardee's restaurant where her son worked until heading off for the Navy. Though things were better, it had been more than a decade since the younger woman had heard of anything of her mother, an estrangement that had been Carla Stuckel's choice. By 1998, when she first learned her mother was dead and her brother and sister were wards of a Midwestern state, she was a civilian officer for the sheriff and worked nights and weekends at a family restaurant, the 4 B's. Never more would she feel sorry for herself. But for years after the affair with John Schmitz left her mother a broken and pathetic woman, Carla Larson always believed that her youngest brother and sister were living somewhere happily in California. She had no idea John and Jeannie were in an orphanage, and the thought of it brought anguish and a flood of tears. "They have a sister who would have taken them in a heartbeat. If someone had called me when our mother died 4 years ago, I would have been there. We would have found a way to take them into our home. I was living here in Montana. I would have found some way. They are my brother and sister. They have a father, and they have 2 sisters, and the Schmitz kids, too." She wondered why John Schmitz didn't contact her when her mother died. Carla Larson knew John Schmitz. It wasn't as if he had no knowledge of her. Then it hit her. She blamed Mary Schmitz. Mary hadn't wanted to take the children in or acknowledge their link to her husband. Why would she take the proof of her husband's infidelity into her own home? That was not Mary's way. That would be asking too much of a woman like her, Carla said later. But John Schmitz, what was his excuse? She couldn't figure out why he didn't stand up for those children when they really needed it. It blew her mind that those children had to live like that when they had a father. Why are those kids in an orphanage? She asked over and over in 1998. Those poor kids must think their sister doesn't care about them. They must wonder why their own sister didn't come after them. Chapter 11. California was far away. The shimmer of the ocean from her bedroom window was a cherished memory. Never more would there be phone calls from friends all over Orange County. "Hey, Mary Kay, look outside and tell us what the beach is doing." The Carla Stuckle scandal was not relevant anymore because her father had told her it was not important. And Mary Kay Schmitz was enrolled in classes at Arizona State University, far from it all. All of Mary Kay Schmitz's friends were beautiful. That had been true with Michelle in Corona del Mar, and it was true of a fine-boned blonde named Kate Stewart at Arizona State University, where she met Mary Kay in the late fall of 1982. Kate was a political science major, and Mary Kay was dabbling in the arts, talking about teaching. And while they were at Arizona State to get their college degrees, both knew that meeting the right man was a possibility, too. The young women dumped their roommates and moved in together when the best apartment in the complex where they both lived became available. Mary Kay had just broken up with a man that friends thought was the love of her life, long before a Samoan boy named Vili Fualaau, of course. Mary Kay had entertained the idea that she might marry the guy, though he hadn't asked her, and she said later she hadn't gone to bed with him. It was a long time since she'd been a virgin, of course, but for this man she was saving herself for the honeymoon. I'd seen Mary Kay and that college man together a few times when Mary Kay was at the apartment, Kate Stewart recalled. Then it was over, and I wasn't paying too much attention that he was such a big deal to her. When we got closer, she described the whole thing for me. I read the letters and I thought, how could this guy undo this? It shouldn't have happened. I wouldn't say it devastated her. It would take a lot to devastate her. I wouldn't say she's devastated now. You can't break this girl. Kate and Mary Kay never had any classes together. At the time they met, Kate had left her sorority, tired of being told what to do and when to do it. Mary Kay was looking into pledging, and, in time, would choose Pi Phi. Their friendship remained strong. Between classes at the university, and hostess and waitress jobs at Mother Tucker's restaurant, or the Paradise Bar and Grill, the two were party companions, driving to and from hot spots in Mary Kay's Ford Fiesta without any breaks. Mary Kay loved to party. She lives on the edge, Kate said later of her friend. She's one of those personalities. She's very outgoing, very non-mainstream. She has her own mind, her own way, and I've accepted that. Wearing miniskirts they had just made, hemmed with tape because there hadn't been time to finish them before heading out one night, Kate and Mary Kay went out to party. That night at a frat party at Pi Kappa Alpha, Kate ran into friends from Chicago, and Mary Kay was partying and dancing with a nice-looking guy, blonde and buff, a fraternity boy from Alaska named Steve Letourneau. When Kate wanted to move on to the next hot spot, she couldn't get Mary Kay to shake the new guy. Steve even followed them out to Mary Kay's car. Kate got into the driver's seat. They were talking and talking. Come on, let's go. Then I thought, well, maybe she's really interested in him. As the weeks flew by, Mary Kay and Steve were always together. For Mary Kay, coming out of the breakup that had crushed her, it seemed like a nice diversion, nothing more. Mary Kay said that Steve Letourneau was fun. And with that, Kate shrugged off the relationship. It was nothing serious, and it certainly wasn't going anywhere. Mary Kay was more than the boy from the Pacific Northwest could handle. He was very average-looking. She liked him. So that was fine. They clicked. They enjoyed each other's company. I don't think it was any more than that. He certainly was not a perfect pick for her, Kate said later. But as Kate observed Mary Kay and her new boyfriend, she could see some changes in Steve. He was dressing better, for one. Kate wondered if Mary Kay was performing some kind of male makeover. Some women, she knew, were drawn to men they could mold and transform. Steve could have been that kind of a project for her friend. Looking back on those days at Arizona State and the years that followed, Kate Stewart could never say that Mary Kay ever really loved Steve. She certainly never loved him. When I use the word love, I'm talking about the bonded-at-the-hip love. Certainly not. If she would have had the opportunity to get back together with her old boyfriend, I think she would have. It would have hurt her to tell Steve that she was going back, but I don't think she'd have thought twice. Mary Kay never planned on marrying Steve Letourneau. In fact, she said, "I'll never marry him," Kate recalled years later. But at 22, Mary Kay became pregnant. "I wanted someone to tell me it's okay to have the baby by yourself. You'll be able to take care of it. You'll be okay. You can still finish school. Your baby will be loved." But no one said that. she said later. Confusion and worry was all over her face. Mary Kay Schmitz told Kate Stewart that she was pregnant as they stood outside in front of Kate's townhouse next to her convertible. "What are you going to do? I know you don't love him," she said. Before Mary Kay could respond, Kate pushed the point harder. "You're not going to marry him, are you?" she asked. Mary Kay was uncertain. "I know I shouldn't," she said finally. "I don't want to. It's not my choice. I'm not sure what I'm going to do." Not long after Mary Kay told Kate that she was pregnant by Steve Letourneau, tragedy struck on campus and she miscarried. She hadn't had time to come up with an answer about marrying Steve. She hadn't told her family she was pregnant. As Mary Kay later recounted to Kate, she had been in class when she started to bleed. The blood flow worsened and she was taken to the hospital. "Okay, now I have to tell my mother," she told Kate. "Now I'm in the hospital. Now it's serious. Something's going on. Now it's not just we're in college and I'm pregnant. It's now what are we going to do?" She called her mother. Mary Schmitz was very right-wing, a right-to-lifer for whom abortion was always murder. From her home in Washington, D.C., Mary Kay's mother talked to the Arizona doctors and told them that absolutely under no circumstances would a D&C be performed on her daughter. It was possible, she said, that there could be another baby. As it turned out, Mary Schmitz was right. Her daughter had lost a twin, but the other baby would survive. Kate parts company with Michelle when it comes to the relationship between mother and daughter, and she considers the support Mary Schmitz gave her daughter when she was miscarrying the baby as the perfect illustration. Kate saw something Michelle never saw. When Mary Kay really needed her, her mother was there. I think her mother has always been there for her, but she hides behind her spirituality. I think her mom wants to be there for her. But Mary's always been the high roller, live on the edge member of the family. It's hard for Mom. You're not my straight-laced daughter, but you're probably my most capable if you'd go that route, and it pisses me off when you haven't. There would be no D&C. But, Mary Schmitz pointed out, there would be a wedding. Her daughter would be marrying Steve Letourneau after all. Maybe I can learn to love him. I owe it to my child to give it a try, Mary Kay thought. When her best friend left Orange County for Tempe, Arizona, Michelle felt lost and abandoned. She hadn't bothered to make any other close friends because Mary Kay had been more than enough. Michelle dropped in and out of community college trying to figure out what she wanted to do and where her life would take her. Mary Kay was off at college and seemed so happy. She was in love with a wonderful man. But suddenly the relationship fell apart. Mary Kay was crushed by the breakup with a man she dreamed of marrying before Steve Letourneau came into her life. Depression gripped her for weeks, months. She was almost suicidal when that ended, Michelle said later of the relationship before Steve Letourneau. She was as low as I've ever heard her. I remember talking to her on the phone, and I was really worried about her, really worried. This was serious. And then she started talking about Steve Letourneau. Try to imagine where her heart and mind was when Steve came along. She needed someone safe, someone she knew wouldn't hurt her, someone she could manipulate. Michelle had no doubts that Steve was a rebound relationship. The change had been so sudden. Mary Kay had gone from the depths of depression to the joy of a new love. And then she was pregnant and married, lickety-split. It was too swift. Michelle would never forget her first impression of Steve Letourneau. He was nice enough, she thought, but Mary Kay could have done much better. She was way out of his league. He reminded me of a puppy, following her around, licking her hand. Michelle knew that her friend's upcoming marriage meant an end to their friendship as they had envisioned it. The closeness they shared would never be the same. She only wished that Mary Kay would be happy, that Mary Kay's deal with her family to marry her baby's father would be worth it, that her dreams wouldn't die because she had to settle for a man she didn't love. Chapter 12. Whatever Steve Letourneau's role in what happened with his wife, and what drove Mary Kay to do what she did with her student, his background was no Norman Rockwell ideal either. When he was a boy, His parents, Sharon and Dick Letourneau, moved to Anchorage, Alaska, from Puyallup, near Tacoma, Washington, located near the base of Mount Rainier. Dick Letourneau had a job as a salesman for a food products company, and the move was a step up. The Letourneaus' shaky marriage didn't survive long after the move. Steve was 13, and his sister Stacy was 9 when their parents divorced. Grandma Nadine, Sharon's mother, was heartbroken, not only because of the divorce, but because the children ended up staying with their father. She said it was their choice, not their mother's wish. Sharon didn't abandon them. She lived close to them. She kept track of them every day. She stayed in their living quarters until the kids adjusted to their being apart, Nadine said later. Sharon stayed nearby and never missed one of her son's baseball games. In time, Steve's mother married a younger man. Grandma Nadine understood why Steve was resentful of the divorce, but she felt that her daughter Sharon had been made out to be the cause of everything. Years later, the hurt was not completely absent from her words. Grandma Nadine had to admit that though Steve and Stacy loved their mother, they worshipped their dad. They had every right to, she said. He did everything with them. He was a great father, still is. Steve Letourneau returned to the Seattle area for Thanksgiving 1983. His grandmother Nadine had hosted the family gathering in her mobile home in a Puyallup, Washington trailer court for as many years as most could remember. The guest list included Steve's sister Stacy and his father Dick, Nadine's former son-in-law who had not yet remarried. Among the topics of conversation was the woman Steve had been dating at Arizona State. The pair were having a fling, but Steve wasn't serious about her. Grandma Nadine later recounted the new relationship in terms very different from Michelle or Kate's versions. It wasn't Steve who was the hanger-on. She was on his back constantly. Every place he goes, she's there, and he can't get rid of her. She had her eye on him. He was very preppy-looking, very good-looking. "She just won't leave me alone," Steve said. Grandma Nadine never minced words. "Stephen," she said, looking him straight in the eye and with convincing authority, "if you don't want her around, come right out and tell her. Look, buzz off." Later, the grandmother would regret how her grandson had ignored her words. A few months later, Nadine heard some startling news. Steve and the girl were getting married. Her name was Mary Kay Schmitz, the daughter of a highfalutin senator or something. Nadine was surprised because the last she heard, Steve had wanted to get away from the girl. Arizona State University was part of the past. The college degrees they had sought would have to wait. Suntanned sorority girls and fraternity boys joined the Schmitz family as they celebrated the hurry-up wedding of Steve Letourneau and, almost 4 months pregnant, Mary Kay Schmitz on June 30th, 1984. Dahlgren Chapel at Georgetown University, where John Schmitz had been on sabbatical, was the venue. It was by any estimation a lovely and very Catholic wedding. Leaving no detail unplanned, the bride paid special attention to the music. She had 3 trumpeters and a vocalist. "If you ask any of my relatives which was the most beautiful wedding, they would say mine," Mary Kay later told a friend. Steve's maternal relatives didn't have the funds or couldn't take time off from work to attend the ceremony. Dick Letourneau and his second wife made it, though. It was just as well. It wasn't the wedding of anyone's dreams, anyway. For Mary Kay, everything was perfect, with the exception of a groom that she didn't love. Back in Puyallup, Washington, Grandma Nadine had worked her fingers to the bone at a local drugstore chain. She had raised her children with love and a firm hand. She was the kind of woman who refused to take any guff from anyone. She didn't like the phoniness that came with money and social standing. Steve was her grandson, and when he and his new bride returned from the wedding in Washington, D.C., after dropping out of college, she insisted on holding a reception for her side of the family, since only the money side, the Letourneaus, had been able to travel back east for the wedding. Steve's mother, Sharon, had yet to meet her son's bride. Nadine cooked day and night, spruced up her mobile home, and set a pretty table. Mary Kay was polite and demure and very beautiful, and Nadine took an instant dislike to her. A few minutes after they met, the 60-something woman with glasses that pinched her nose excused herself and went to the kitchen where her daughters were working. "Well, wonder when she's due?" Nadine asked. "Mother," one of the daughters said. "Okay, bet me. I didn't have 6 kids for nothing." The younger women laughed it off. But of course, their mother was right. A few weeks later, Steve confirmed that his new wife was pregnant. His grandmother was satisfied that she had been correct. "It takes 2 to tango," she said. "If a girl's going to lay down with a guy's going to take it. I don't care who it is. Could be the Pope." She trapped him, Nadine said several years later, still furious over the situation. She thought she was getting into a wannabe Kennedy-type situation because he was the preppy-type kid that was going to Arizona State. Her perspective possibly skewed by bitterness. Grandma Nadine would later shake her head at the memory of her first impression of Mary Kay Letourneau. She was uneasy about Steve's girlish and wide-eyed bride with the upper-crust pedigree, and wasn't afraid to say so. Nadine was the type of woman who arrived at instant and ironclad conclusions when it came to sizing up a person's character. "I knew there was going to be trouble," she said later. A few months after Nadine's reception in Puyallup, Stephen Jr. was born at a hospital in Anchorage, Alaska. When Mary Kay and Steve brought their first baby home from the hospital, the new mother put him in a family heirloom bassinet that she had lined with fabric she had ordered from the Paris specialty retailer Decon. "It was just perfect," she said later of the fabric. "It was a pattern of soft, delicate hearts, classic, not the Valentine's hearts, but a more classic look."
Say they got the more classic look. We don't got them old tacky hearts they throw out there for Valentine's Day and all. We got them from Paris, France. Parlez-vous français? Come on. I thought they just said we don't like all that pretentiousness and putting on airs, being phony just because you got a few nickels in the bank. And then we don't just get any old type of hearts for the baby now. Woo! I will say, man, 206, 253. If I had been in Wisconsin while we were reading this book, oh my God, I would have had to have Kleenex. Jesus Christ. I'm in lame Milwaukee, Cream City, and I got to be reminiscing and hearing about not even just Seattle. They got like the whole of Washington State, and shout to Puyallup and Graham and SeaTac and Tacoma and Kent and 253. Some of that's not even Kent County. That's Pierce County. For some of that. Mount Rainier is not Seattle either. That's like a 2-hour drive from Seattle. But oh my God, I would have lost my mind. Like 253, 206, Pierce County. Like, oh, I might have to go and look at the Space Needle. Like, I'm not even, I think I've lived in Seattle for 20 years. I don't think I've ever made one attempt to go to the Space Needle for the 4th of July. Like, not once. Not for the fireworks, not for the drones. Not one. I might do it today. Program will end early enough. I might do it today. Just Mary Kay. They should have a drone image of Mary Kay and Vili. Like, go through some of the images of Seattle. They can have Marshawn Lynch riding through, right? They can have when Obese came to visit. Like, they got some moments up here. They can have the George Floyd protest. Lord. The Rona, they can have that, and they can put Mary Kay and Vila, Jimi Hendrix, right? Kurt Cobain, they could do a little Nirvana like Teen Spirit, right? And they put Mary Kay up there. When they made cannabis legal, I know some moments in Seattle history, but yeah, they should put Mary Kay and Vila up there, do a little drone shot, and say, what's love got to do with it? Come on. Katherine Massey Book Club, Context of White Supremacy. Gregg Olsen, If Loving You Is Wrong. Audio segment number 1 is done. If you have thoughts, observations to share, the number 720-716-7300. The code 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. I'm trying to think, if I had lived here in Seattle at that time, I did not, but if I had, I'm not sure I would have thought of this as an act of racism, because it doesn't seem like anybody during this time period said, hey, this is a racist white heifer here, and this is an act of racism. We should be charging her with some extra crimes, or at least how we think about it. There's something else that we got to think about. These no-count, racist, lecherous white chicks in the classroom. They're sending our children to the prison and raping them. I haven't found anybody who said that thus far. If you do find articles of that nature, please share. But I haven't heard anybody take that position. It's the same way they talk about Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings, since we want to get all patriotic. U.S. history. There you go right there. The long tradition of raping non-white children in this part of the world. And really, that's white culture. Brag about that sort of thing often. Go out and rape non-white children. Jerry Sandusky type of Jeff Dahmer type of a thing. But I don't think I would have thought of this as racism. Like, hey, they even said, Larry King said, is Jeff Dahmer a racist? Oh, he's not a racist. He just I rape a child or two. I'm not no racist. No. He's talking crazy, you know. Yeah. Any of the folks listening in, if you're old enough, if you remember when they did talk about Mary Kay Letourneau, if you followed this case, maybe you read some of the books or watched some of so much video content on it, or read, newspaper articles or talked to people about it. Do you remember anybody saying the word racism being used in connection with this case at all, or Mary Kay? And it's even wild getting more information, because Jesus Christ. So we heard John Birch Society last week, this week, right-winger, and Jesse Helms. Wouldn't that be enough to even be looking at them a little sideways? Like, you're some right-wingers from California. That's Ronald Reagan land. Right-wingers from California who homies with Jesse Helms. Maybe you are at least racist suspects. We ain't got to get to, you're raping non-white children, because, we ain't got to ask no more questions. But, wouldn't that be enough to be like, man, this is a racist? Yeah. We'll see. Anybody, did you all think this is a racist? Did you hear people talk about this is a racist? This is an act of racism, what you did in picking out this child? Let us know. The email, untiljustice@gmail.com. One thing I will say quickly, man, we are doing our part. PSA, hey, keep you off the roads, driving intoxicated, going out, blowing off a hand with fireworks and all that. You could be in reading, studying counter-racism. Even, maybe, this might even be a book to read with your children. Got any children? If you're homeschooling them, say it's lots of threats in the school. One of them is Mary Kay, because it's lots of Mary Kays out there. That's facts. I wasn't even, joking about that. If I had children, if they were 12, 13 and up, you would know about Mary Kay. It's summertime. You might even have to write me a report. Who is Mary Kay, and why is she significant in the system of white supremacy? Isn't that a white teacher? Vili was 12. Absolutely. I might even look at you sideways if you're a parent and you got a child that's 13, 15, 16, 17, and they don't know who Mary Kay is, especially if you live in Washington State, maybe even California, and your child said, Mary Kay? Who is that? Who is that? They sounded like Gus when Fuller was talking to me, and your child said, who is Mary Kay? And they don't know, and you say you're an attempted counter-racist parent, I'm looking at you sideways. Maybe you, hey, how about maybe your child has already met Mary Kay? Be a lame non-white parent if you want to. Gus to say all that with no children. Number again, 720-716-7300. The code 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. That's one to think on, since we love to do so much talk. Give you the double whammy. We do so much talk saying it's the man. And then our favorite, not all white people are racist, since that's such a common way of thinking and non-white people are so confused about racism. How common do we think Mary Kay is? That's just one to think on as we're reading this. If you have thoughts today, that's fine, but that'll be one I'm thinking on as we proceed. Now, how common do we think this is? White female teachers specifically sexually sewering non-white male students. How common do we think this is? Is this like a one-off aberration? That's what they call it, freak, not the freak off, not that it just kind of a freak incident. 1 in a billion. We miss you, Leah. That type of thing. Or do we think this is, my child for real might know Mary Kay? Let's see. Folks have thoughts to share, and the email again, untiljustice@gmail.com. Folks who dialed in with a hand up, let's see. Mr. Douglas should be with us, and Shamika Harris should be with us as well. If I had spent any time in Alaska, I'd have had to leave Milwaukee early, because they, shouting out kind of the whole Pacific Northwest region in this text. So if I had Seattle connects and Alaska connects, I'd still be screaming now. But since I don't, I'm just repping for the 206, Seattle, 253, King County, Pierce County, SeaTac, Puyallup, Graham, Washington State. Best plantation ever. Folks who dialed in with a hand up, proceed.
Greetings, Mr. Renegade.
Mr. Douglas.
So I remember this case when I was in the news back when I was in junior high and high school. I particularly remember it being in the tabloids. My grandmother, she used to get the tabloids, and that was one of the recurring stories I recall from that, but also just on the news, on TV, and in papers. And at the time, I did not think it was racist, but I did think it was curious that the boy was non-white. You mentioned about, non-white children being victims of white female teachers. Over in Milwaukee, while you were there, there was a case going on there. A white woman, Erica Alamang Reinke, known as Mrs. A, at I think it was the Rufus King High School. I think they were also Rufus King was also in the news because they were the victim of racist taunts by white high schools. But that's where she worked, and she's accused of sexually harassing 4 black male student athletes. They were basketball players. She was charged with 4 felony counts of sexually inappropriate conduct involving boys between September 2024 and April 2025. She had asked for the students' phone numbers, GPS location, would call and FaceTime them at random times, bought them gifts and gave them money. One victim reported that she offered to perform a sexual act after he lost a game. Another student said she caressed his thigh in her classroom and attempted to sit on his lap. So I think that's, you've been talking for the past several weeks about Milwaukee public schools and black males, and considering only 35% of black males are graduating from high school, I think this just adds to the negative experience that goes on there for black males, and probably goes on a lot more frequently than we might be aware of. I think there was a lot of callous themes that are coming up in this story here. White men, the original deadbeat dads, with John Schmitz not acknowledging his children and not wanting to pay child support. Of course, white people don't care about children. Carla, his mistress, in order to get his attention, decides that she's going to wrap that hair around her child's penis when it almost was severed. Definitely a Wellsing moment there with, white male child, almost losing his penis. And then also it kind of made me think of Jeffrey Dahmer as well. There were some things, also, I had a chance to listen to, there's an Australian interview. I've not had a chance to listen to all of it, but I'd started to listen to about a third of it. And, the theme, when you play around with sex, the joke is on the offspring. Definitely with Schmidt's situation, but, Vili Fualaau, he was one of 18 children. His mother had 4 children. And so just thinking about, and she was alone. She was not, with his father. And so you've got that going on there, and this white woman comes into their lives and, seems to offer some sort of, concern or care for her child. It just, it's really, really difficult, really, it shows the predicament that non-white people face in this system of white supremacy, particularly when, when you have that many children. There's also a theme about white children and incest. It made me think about, Malcolm X in his autobiography talked about at the dance he was at, the white boys wanted him to ask the white girls out to dance and to engage in some, some sort of sexual activity. And they were trying to egg them on by saying that they had done that with the girls and even their own sisters. And that made me think about how common is this among whites that they would do that kind of activity. I was wondering too. I've not listened to all of the interviews you did with Dr. Wellsing, or definitely not all of her other talks. But did you all ever discuss Mary Kay Letourneau in any of your previous programs, or have you heard her discuss that in any kind of talks that she might have given? One thing that was mentioned, I think, at the last program was about, what if non-white black people have been reporting on this incident? I've been trying to find in, doing a Google search, and I need to continue, but looking to find if this was reported in black newspapers. Now, I've not seen it as of right yet, but I'm wondering if this has been reported, and if anybody has seen any reports in the black newspapers about Vili Fualaau and Mary Kay Letourneau and that whole situation. Another thing too, being that it was in California, I wondered, and was there any connection with Jim Jones and John Schmitz on any kind of level? I know that Jim Jones was, interacted with a member of the John Birch Society. I cannot recall his name at the moment. And knowing that John Schmitz also was in there, if there's any kind of connection that they may have had, if anybody was aware of that. I did think it was interesting, the different perspective on who wanted who. It seemed, the contradiction there where the friend of Mary Kay was like, that he was Steve Letourneau was the one who really pursued her and wanted her. And she just kind of, that Mary Kay just kind of allowed it to happen because, it was just kind of convenient for her. But then from his grandmother, Nadine, talking about how, it seemed like that Mary Kay was the one who was initiating this relationship and was the one who was really pursuing it and pursuing him, and that he was kind of casual about it. And I guess the last thing, another callous theme, I guess, it was on page 51, continuing to 52, there was a quote about the family and saying that they came from a family that whatever they did didn't matter. It was okay, that God would find a way. They could be purified in this fervor they had, this self-righteousness. The rules are not for them, not for him. And that kind of made me think about that, that being kind of a summary for, the way it seems that white people approach life, that it doesn't, they are not restricted by things. They do what they want, and that's okay. And that's all I have to share. Thank you.
Much obliged, Mr. Douglas. Let's see. I do not think we in our 31 visits with Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, I don't believe that I or we listeners spoke with her about the Mary Kay Letourneau case. I'd say for me mostly, I was not super duper informed about this case. Even after speaking about it with Mr. Fuller, I didn't do the intelligent thing, which would have been go grab one of the many books that have been written about this. I did go read newspaper articles, and there are, thousands of those too. Or I could have just went and watched some documentaries to really get the Barbara Walters, could have had my fill. I went and read articles, but I didn't do a thorough enough search in the best place to do so right here. So I don't think we spoke with Dr. Welsing about this case at all, which is a shame because I'm very certain Dr. Welsing knew of this case, and given her theory was so comprehensive with regards to all people who are classified as not white, and the fact that Fuller talked about this case also with regards to his theory of racism, white supremacy, and counter-racism, I would be stunned if, she wasn't aware and had talked of it. It's probably on one of her lectures at some point, or, she brought it up with someone else, but that is a failure. Gus T, and we could have done a whole program. We could have done a whole program on it. Jesus Christ. The penis component just reminded me while Mr. Douglas was talking, also, I forgot Seattle history. Hey, they should have old Ted Bundy. How the hell are you going to have Seattle history and not have Ted Bundy up there? Maybe they should name the airport should be Ted Bundy SeaTac Airport, maybe. I said they should have a statue, University of Washington, Ted Bundy. Make sure the people remember. It's like, oh, yeah, he's an alumni of the old Ted. Yeah. But one of the other legendary white serial killers from this area, Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer, who killed a lot of non-white people. Some even talk about him as a racist killer. And that's why he got away with it for so long, because he killed a disproportionate number of non-white females. But Gary Ridgway, I believe, said the same thing, that his mother aggressively would scrub his genital area when he was younger. So somehow that got crisscrossed with pain, pleasure, sexual organs, and there you go. But Seattle is one of the areas, along with California, notorious producing a lot of white serial killers. That also is a great query. Did black newspapers cover this case? That would be fascinating to see. Like, did they discuss this as an act of racism? Why would she pick a non-white child in an area where they don't really have a lot of non-white children? Did they, or what did they say about it at all? Did they take the same position? Vili's not a victim. This is a love triangle. Oh my God. Woo. Or did they not talk about it at all? Maybe they took the position that we've heard. We should just focus on ourselves, focus on black people, focus on people classified as black born in this part of the world exclusively. And Vili isn't that, so forget that. That don't have no relevance to black people. Maybe. I'll check on that. We'll see. Man, I called Mr. Douglas so many coon, and you don't count dirty coon, steal my thunder. I passed Rufus King in Milwaukee repeatedly, and the victims and parents had a public protest news conference while I was there. Now, I didn't get to attend, but I posted the video footage from the news conference and asked Mr. Mays, hey, can we chat with some of the parents and all that? He said, well, I'll talk it up to them and, see if they want more publicity or, all of that. So I saw all of that while I was there in Milwaukee. Now, talking about Milwaukee is the scariest place ever. And I don't never hear nothing. And I mean nothing. constructive, good, even like neutral about Milwaukee public schools. It's children being raped, lead, and your brain is going to fall out. We don't have no soap. Children, not 24 children being killed at Milwaukee public school. That's not, I'm just saying, like, I go on and on. I don't never hear nothing good about Milwaukee public, and they graduate 35% of black males. Nothing good. Shamika Harris should be with us if you have commentary as well.
Yes, sir. I'm here. Can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. First, I think Mr. Douglas, he gave excellent commentary. I had not even thought about the penis thing. Well, okay, so in the Jeffrey Dahmer book, he had that surgery, and when he woke up, he asked if his penis had been cut off. And I didn't think about that until his commentary. And this week's section, actually, I have something from last week that I didn't say. Right at the end of chapter 6, it said, Carla Stuckle sucked on a more menthol and flatly stated to her daughter she had become pregnant on purpose. I thought that was kind of a Wellsing moment because those More cigarettes, they were longer and they were a dark brown color. So it just made me think about penises, I guess. And let me see. At the beginning of chapter 7, with Carla Stuckle, she names the little girl Eugenie. And I just read about that maybe a couple of months ago in a book called White Supremacy by Gavin Evans or Edwards, something like that. But anyway, that name Eugenie, that became common after eugenics got popular with the white people. So, you know, good genes. I guess this is a white baby. So she was thinking about that when she named the child. What she did to the little boy's penis, that seemed like something that would be in a Stephen King book. That's what I thought to myself. Some weird things going on with the white mothers and their sons' penises in Stephen King books. And I remembered that it said she had a lot of Stephen King books in her library. So I wonder if it's a connection right there, whether she read that and it somehow influenced her or she came up with something new. Because I've certainly never heard any or read anything about someone taking and tying a hair. I don't even know how she thought of that. It's disgusting. And then the way she kept talking about it. She said, you know, she was talking to the doctor. And, well, she was talking to her daughter, I'm sorry. And she said, I took him to the doctor. And he said the baby has a hair wrapped around his penis and it had been there for some time. But the wrapped, it's making it seem like she didn't do it. It just got done. She tied it and then made a bow. So it seems like, I think she did it on purpose, according to the way this text is written. Let me see. Oh, when the Detective Hine, was talking to her, he said Detective Hine figured there wasn't much chalk on that blackboard. I had never heard that metaphor before, but not much chalk on the blackboard seems supportive of a system of racism, white supremacy. The chalk is white, and it seems like when you don't have enough of it, it means that one lacks intelligence. Let me see. Okay. When they were talking about the father, John Schmitz, and the way he handled the affair with Carla coming out, it said, though they did not talk about the Stuckle affair, St. Cecilia Choir director Richard Colda was struck by how John Schmitz exhibited no shame or repentance over what happened. And I thought maybe he just wasn't ashamed or repentant, so why would he act like that? And then it said there's something that he did a marvelous job of hiding from all of the rest of us, possibly even from himself for many years, he said later. Now, I just don't have any idea how John Schmitz could hide it from himself that he was having sex with another white woman who was not his wife. I'm confused by that, but people make lots of statements. When white people do something incorrect, people make these statements trying to make it seem like somehow they're not responsible, and I think that's one of them. Okay. Even when the newspaper and television reporters made her out to be a child abuser, the perpetrator of an unspeakable act, she tied a hair around her son's penis, Carla Stuckle continued to put the blame for the affair on Mary Schmitz. I thought that's a common tactic. Someone else is to blame, I'm the victim. White people do that quite a lot, especially ladies. It said most considered Carla Stuckle a step down from what he could have been sleeping with. Maybe John Schmitz did the same thing, Mary Kay did. They chose someone who was a bit more like a desperate type of person, a person who would be easier to have their way with. Let me see. I do think there's a connection, though, in between Mary Kay and the way her father acted with the Stuckle lately, Carla Stuckle. I also think it's interesting that both of the white women, Mary Schmitz and Carla Stuckle, they named both of their daughters after them. That's interesting. And also, she said when she was talking about first the family, when she had the little brother who decided he was going to be a Scientologist, and that was in San Francisco. I made that connection to Jonestown too, because it seems like a cult to me. But she said it was something that we never talked about. And she also said she didn't talk to her dad about Carla Stuckle. And it's like, they're not talking about things that are really important in this family. And it makes me wonder, what are they talking about? Let me see. The children. It would have been John Schmitz's children. So it would have been John Jr., well, not Jr., but John Bostrom and Eugenie. They ended up in an orphanage. And the sister, when she found out about it, she said, I don't know, she was upset that they were in an orphanage. And then she said she wondered why John Schmitz didn't contact her when her mother died. Carla Larson knew John Schmitz. It wasn't as if he had no knowledge of her. And she kind of blamed Mary Schmitz as well. But then she asked, why are those kids in an orphanage? She asked over and over in 1998. Those poor kids must think their sister doesn't care about them. They must wonder why their own sister didn't come after them. I was wondering it too. And I wonder if she did do something. If she went and got those children or if she left them in the orphanage, I don't know. The book made a remark about all of Mary Kay Schmitz's friends being beautiful. Also talked about how both of them were blonde when they were talking about Michelle and Kate Stewart. Brought their blondness up. Let me see. Kate Stewart can never say that Mary Kay ever really loved Steve. I thought that was interesting. They also said the same thing about that lady, Carla, the older Carla, who had the babies with Mary Kay's father. Her daughter said she didn't think she was capable of loving anyone because she was so selfish. Let me see. I also wondered about who pursued who with Steve Letourneau and Mary Kay, because it seemed to be two different stories there where, he's following her around like a puppy, but then Steve Letourneau, his grandma Nadine, had a completely different version of that. So I wondered about that as well. And let me see, I think it was something else. So you asked a question before this started, Gus. How common do we think this is? White women teachers having sex with students? I think it's common enough. Like, I have no idea of the percentage or whatever, but when I was in high school, there was a white woman teacher who was very flirtatious with one of my classmates who was a black male. I don't know if he ever engaged in any sexual intercourse with her, but I think she might have wanted to. Let me see. And I think that's all I have for now. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
This in an environment where they say that black males in particular are not capable of being raped. Hey, maybe we should keep that in mind as we're reading this. Vili's not black, but hey, maybe they say the same thing. It's not even possible to rape Vili. What are you talking about? In fact, he might have raped her. I thought they said that last week. Like, man, I think Lauren pointed that out. Said the police last week said, did she kidnap him? Or did he kidnap her? Much obliged, Lauren. We had lots more blonde references, lots more Welsing moments, the cigarette, the penis, maybe even this whole tacky situation. Matter of fact, even the John Birch and Jesse Helms, all of that. That's my bad, folks. Should have asked. That's a local history. Now, I was not here when all this happened, but still. And because I didn't really pay attention to the news well until I started studying racism. So when all this happened in the 90s, I was not paying attention to racism, so I wasn't paying attention to the news. So I really didn't know about Mary Kay Letourneau at all. Was not paying attention to this. Woo, really late, but very important. Study local history. Be aware of things that happen in your environment. I too think that Mary Schmitz was probably involved in making sure that those children remained in an orphanage. White people do not care about children, and may have even, you're not going to go see them, and that's not our family, and, good riddance to bad rubbish, done enough to mess up our good name and standing in the area, public. Helen in New York should be with us as well. Did you have to work today? You get the day off?
No, sir. I had to work today, yes. Peaceful greetings. Thank you, Gus, and to all the listeners. I've been following the Mary Kay case on and off since '96, but it's been a while. No, I wasn't thinking about racism when I first became aware of the rape case. I've been following the book club, but I'm going to, I guess, skip ahead some. There's a famous photo, infamous photo with Mary Kay and Villa, and that picture is what drew me to the story. It's Mary Kay. She's looking over her shoulder at him, and I always that picture always scared me. Oh, please, I hope y'all ignore the fireworks in the background. But yeah, that picture always creeped me out and scared me. Yeah, so that's what drew me to the case, that picture. Both callers before, they made excellent points or whatever, so I'm not even going to repeat that. But, they made some excellent points. How common do I think this is? I suspect it's quite common, but the thing is that because we're not able to see the children because, the victims, the children, because they're underage, I'm not quite sure what they are, if they're white or non-white. But, I do suspect that it is quite common. They do, have that in the news where teachers are caught, with underage, with students. I vaguely remember 2 interviews with Mary Kay and Villa, and the first one was so insufferable. It was really hard to listen to. And then there was an older one with Villa, and he looked so depressed. I remember thinking to myself, he looks so sad, so depressed. I think he's caught on to, he's been manipulated all these years. She's been practicing on him for all these years. I'm not sure if he ever saw it as that, but he definitely saw the manipulation at some point in time. He was miserable. He looked miserable, rightfully so. The book sounds like, I appreciate them going back into Mary Kay's, oh God, this is so embarrassing. I appreciate them going back in Mary Kay's history about her father and everything. But it just comes off to me like, oh, see, this is why Mary Kay did what she did. You know, she had such a traumatic childhood. You know, her father was caught cheating and that scandal. That's the impression I'm getting from it. And how many people do y'all know struggle to eat PB&Js or whatever and are able to buy a house soon afterwards? I know quite a few people have bought homes and not, you know, yeah, they struggled. They did what they had to do, you know, work 2 and 3 jobs, this, that, and the other, but not, you know, eating PB&Js, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And then they're able to just buy a house. Like, really? And I don't know, I was cleaning while I was listening to the book club. I was cleaning and sipping lemon water juice. But I don't, it was a part with the big sister. She was like, she didn't find out that her mother died or that those kids was in foster care until 4 years later. So did she not keep in contact with her mother before she passed away? Or what? So embarrassing. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if I blinked or what, because I was slightly distracted by cleaning. But I don't remember, like, did she not? Did the big sister not keep in contact with her mom? And that's all for now.
I don't think you should be embarrassed about the fireworks. I think all of us, or at least those of us in the U.S., so-called, all of us are be tolerating that to various degrees. Probably not just today, probably for the next several days. So, yeah, I don't think that's anything to be embarrassed about for, you know, hey, at least you still have all of your fingers and toes, and hopefully that'll still be the case by the time we get to Monday. Any hoodles. With regards to the daughter Schultz, Carla Schultz, not being informed, I think they had said that there was some sort of estrangement. I think the daughter even might have been the one who initiated, and where they hadn't, I guess, kept in contact for some time. I think, unless I didn't hear that correctly, folks that are with us, Mr. Douglas, Lauren, did you all remember? I think there had been some breach in contact, so she was not aware that, there's been a death, and then the children, she's thinking that they're in California living it up, and that's not the case. They're in an orphanage. But did you all, was there an estrangement there?
Yeah, that's what I thought. It seemed like the daughter, Carla, got tired of dealing with the mom. It was just too much, so she just stopped talking to her.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought they said. Specific, not that I conjured it. I thought they said that kind of explicitly in the text this week. But yeah, and I think Lauren had already raised it. I think Mary Schmitz, that's Mary Kay's mom, she probably had a hefty, and man, this would, for those who say white supremacy, racism, matriarchy, and white women do a lot to dominate and run the show, right here. I suspect Mary Schmitz probably did a lot to all of this. The orphanage, just get rid of them. You almost could think of it like the plantation type of a thing. Like, I know this white man has been out there in the slave court. Sally Hemings, I know. You getting sold down the river. Octoroon, quadroon, down the river. That type of thing. Then we don't even have to look at you no more. Orphanage. White people do not care about children. The entire existence of a so-called orphanage, Exhibit A to white people not caring about children. Let's see. I'll do a teaspoon of one email and then see if we have time. I can share a thought or two, and then we'll get to audio segment number 2. She said, I have to see if I can find the image that Helen in New York was talking about. She said it was the photo of Mary Kay kind of looking over her shoulder at Vili that kind of drew her into this, although I think she said she didn't necessarily think about this as racism, but that image kind of drew her to kind of pay attention to this case over the years. I have to see if I can find that one. I will say a number of the interviews, I haven't seen them all, obviously, because there's so many of them. Barbara Walters apparently did several. I played a snippet from the later interview that Barbara Walters did last week. She said the first time that they did an interview, Vili didn't speak. That, wow, so we're going to do an interview, and at this time, he's a teenager still. I don't even know if he was 18. I had a white woman who would have been close to 40. We in love. And she does all the talking for us. Either I choose not to speak, I'm not allowed to speak, like whatever. Man. Like, woo, that alone. Anyway, she talked about how he looked as well. And they said, hey, I was going to almost interrupt and say, hey, wait a minute now. Don't you call Vili no victim. I don't care how sad he looked or manipulated or, she done bamboozled me. Don't you call Vili no victim. White experts done told us Vili is not a victim. So get it together. I don't know if you messed around with that lemon water and spiked it or whatever, but get your mind right. He is not a victim. Let's see. Email number 1. Greetings, Gus, listeners, callers. I remember the Letourneau affair. It was a lot in the media. Yes, it was. And I still missed it. Embarrassing. I did not process it at the time as an act of racism, white supremacy. I don't recall if much of the backstory, for example, her father being a racist on Letourneau, was talked about in the media. I certainly do not. Well, I didn't know. Yeah, never mind. It was many years before I became acquainted with the work of Dr. Welsing and Mr. Fuller. Chapter 7. Number 1, that I wrapped hair around his penis. Carla Stuckle told her daughter that she had done nothing wrong but was in big trouble. The boy's penis had been so damaged he urinated out a gash. WTF. See, the fireworks going off here too. See. WTF. And if they were black. Oh my God. She would have been arrested, thrown the book, and they might literally have gone and got the biggest, heaviest book they could have found, like hardback volume of War and Peace and Clow, and you're gonna get 15 years in prison and all the. Oh my God. Chapter 8. The detective didn't let on, but he couldn't believe his ears. The ultra-conservative politician who told everyone to take. Now, even that term, ultra-conservative, does that mean racist? Ultra-conservative politician who told everyone to take responsibility for their families, and he had 2 children by some woman in a tract home in Tustin. The late, great Johnny Cochran also worked that 2-family DLC Cal's book club, The Run of His Life, The People v. O.J. Simpson by Jeffrey Tubin. O.J. gets 2 mentions. Mr. Cochran seemed to have a better relationship with his second family than Schmitz had with his. I do remember that. Like, they weren't begging for salmon peanut butter sandwiches on the side, I don't think. 2, she said she knew he had a mistress, but that was no concern of hers. In fact, all of it was John's problem. She was rather indignant that she was brought into it at all, thinking that Mary and John Schmitz had some kind of bizarre understanding. It appeared to the detective that Mrs. Schmitz had known about the affair and didn't care. White culture, perhaps? This is just business, the business of maintaining racism, white supremacy. Thomas Jefferson's wife, I'm sure, knew he's raping that nigger child. I'm sure she was aware. Chapter 9. Hank Springer later saw great relevance in the scandal, almost a foreshadowing. Somewhere there was a meaning for Mary Kay and what happened with her father and Carla Stuckle. They came from a family that whatever they did didn't matter. It was okay. God would find a way. This passage seems to encapsulate what it means to be white. I agree completely. The rules the rules are for the Negro. All that white defiance during the Rona, I don't need to wear a mask and all the rest of it. Even doctor in North Carolina, he said his 6 words were 55 miles per hour means you, black boy. He said, on the highway, I got to drive 54. I see white people, they're going 80, driving with their feet, having sexual intercourse in the back seat, not driving at all. They don't get a ticket and don't seem concerned. Why? Because the rules are for the Negro. White, I do what I want. 2, Mary started a career selling real estate for psychic and broker Jean Dixon in Washington, D.C. Dixon was very famous during this time period. I used to read her newspaper column as a kid, and she appeared regularly on TV. She allegedly predicted the assassination of JFK. President Nixon and First Lady Nancy Reagan were followers of hers. I'm just remembering that we talked a lot about so-called black magic and astrology and this sort of thing in Jonestown. Remember? That was kind of the whole beginning of the book. Even Adolf Hitler and the Nazi connection of black magic and the occult. And white people at the CIA having lots of interest in this. All that just coming back to me. 3, Mary Schmitz threatened to sue the church and asked political crony Jesse Helms to launch a congressional probe. Recall the controversy surrounding basketball icon Michael Jordan's comment, "Republicans buy sneakers too," which he allegedly did not say or said in jest or what have you. When his mother asked him to publicly endorse victim Harvey Gantt, who was running against old Democrat and suspected racist Helms in a North Carolina primary Senate race. Let's see, number 4, the felony child neglect charges against Carla Stuckle were eventually dropped, and she was put on 6 months of social service agency supervision, but the indignities continued. They put the children up for adoption. And if they were black, see the book Torn Apart, How the Child Welfare System Destroys the Black Family. Dorothy Roberts, White People Don't Care About Children. Indeed. 10, she was at the end of the line. Carla was found dead. Mary Schmitz's close friend Jean Dixon, who assumed guardianship of the boy and girl. When the famed astrologer died in 1997, Carla's children were made wards of the state. They now live in an orphanage. John Schmitz, what was his excuse? She couldn't figure it out. Why are those kids in an orphanage? White people don't care about children. If anyone has a better conclusion, let us know. Chapter 11. Kate Stewart could never say that Mary Kay ever really loved Steve, using Mr. Fuller's definition of love, meaning not harming anyone. Then there ain't no love in this book. Anyway, that we need to be reminded of that free, and love is in the title of this book, even that. So we can't call Vili a victim, and the experts say, but this is love. A 30-year-old white woman raping a 12-year-old non-white child. That's love. The beginning of knowledge is calling things by their proper name. And yes, sometimes you do indeed have victims. We will get to audio segment 2. Did I miss anything? Anybody have anything that they can share in like 30 seconds that they need to get in right now? Or everybody grand? Everybody good? Great. Write it down if you have additional comments that you did not get to share. Jot it down. We should have time aplenty, provided we don't get blown up in the bomb simulations. Audio segment number 2, Gregg Olsen, racist suspect. That'd be interesting. I said that if a black person had written this book, especially if they'd been informed about racism, white supremacy, like, we're ultra-conservative. right wing. Might be even just racist suspect. Anyhoodles, audio segment number 2, Gregg Olsen's If Loving You Is Wrong. Mary Kay, what it means to be white.
Chapter 13. South of Seattle, and not far from the airport, Kent, Washington, had been in a growth spurt for much of the 1980s. The suburban city was a bland mix of old and new. Ticky-tacky apartments along I-5 and view homes overlooking the Kent Valley and Mount Rainier were at the extremes. It was by far middle and working class. Traffic had been increasing steadily. Making a left turn down into the valley was becoming more difficult for the folks who lived in the condominium complex called Carriage Row and worked in the basin that had become a sprawl of nondescript aerospace offices where truck farms once flourished. In 1985, Steve, Mary Kay, and their toddler son, Stephen, moved into Unit 109 of the townhouse-style complex done up in theme more akin to Boston than Seattle. The family moved down from Anchorage. Steve had been transferred to the SeaTac hub of Alaska Airlines where he worked handling baggage. Mary Kay was gearing up for classes at Seattle University, where she would complete what she had started at Arizona State. She was going to be a teacher. One sunny afternoon when Joe Bendix was pruning some shrubbery in front of his condominium, he was interrupted by Mary Letourneau, a very casual Mary. "Have you seen my son, Stephen?" she asked. Joe said he hadn't. He put down his tools. "I haven't seen him in a while," she said. "Wonder where he is." Her tone was flat. She was so casual about it. Hadn't seen him in a while. Joe Bendix knew the drill. There were plenty of times when Mary would get busy doing something, lose track of the time and her barely-out-of-diapers son. More than once, Joe would call over to another neighbor, and the pair would canvass the parking lot, the greenbelt, and the edge of the property abutting the apartment construction site in search of little Stephen. Mary's lack of urgency mystified the man. She's a sweet lady, but only by the grace of God has that little boy made it as far as he has, Joe thought. Years later, he still wondered about it. Oddly enough, he never doubted that Mary loved Stephen or her other children. She was a good mother, except for losing track of her progeny. "The kid was 3 or so and running around this complex," Joe recalled. "My next-door neighbor and I would freak out. There was a busy street and they were building some apartments. We'd find him watching the heavy equipment on the edge of the construction site. They could have squashed him like a bug. It really shocked me." If ever someone needed a new beginning, it was Terry Simmons. The daughter of Fran Bendix, who lived across the Carriage Row complex from the Letourneaus, was fighting a secret disease that in time would nearly take her life. Bulimia had been her secret hell since her parents split up when she was just 12. Fran went off to flight attendant school and eventually married Joe Bendix, also a flight attendant. The two worked at Alaska Airlines with Steve Letourneau. Terry, a soft-voiced young woman from Texas with a little bit of the Lone Star State in her accent, came to Seattle to start over, finish her degree at the University of Washington, reconnect with her mother, and, God willing, get better. Almost immediately, the young woman across the complex caught her eye. "When you first see her, she is so stylish, so striking, and such a beautiful woman, and so precious, that I was a little put off," Terry Simmons said later. "I thought maybe she was a little, for lack of a better term, snobby. I got to know her a little bit at a time. Then, all of a sudden, we were great friends, once you get past that facade." Though Mary Kay was a mother and wife, she and Terry were at similar places in their professional lives. Mary Kay was trying to finish up her degree at Seattle University, following it with a teaching stint at a Catholic school in Seattle. Terry was enrolled at the University of Washington. Both women had let things slow them in their plans to complete their education. For Mary Kay, it was motherhood. For Terry, it was her bulimia. We were like those little fishin' bobbers, Terry remembered some time later. We were all by ourselves, and we happened to bump into each other, and we stuck. Neither one of us had any friends. We were very fortunate to have found each other. The Letourneaus were a family that was focused on the future. There didn't seem to be much affection between Mary Kay and Steve Letourneau. Their lives were a routine, a marriage more like a business deal than an affair of the heart. The love between them barely showed. But Terry and others wondered, how could it? Mary Kay was going to school, and Steve was always working or taking the odd classes at Highline Community College. Steve was hardly ever home. He worked his ass off, Terry said later. He worked so hard for that family. They were a family that had a mission that was bent on both of them getting their education and doing what they wanted to do. Years later, when his supporters would be few and far between, Terry Simmons would stand up for her old friend and neighbor, Steve Letourneau. He never got to finish his education. He never got to do what he wanted to do. And Mary Kay did. She got what she wanted, and she blew it. If I were Steve, I would feel so badly about that. The weeks and months flew by. Mary Kay and Terry carpooled to class with little Stephen in tow. They clipped coupons for grocery shopping at Albertsons, and they hung around the townhouse, joking and laughing like a couple of teenagers, and sharing their dreams for the future sprawled out on towels at Seattle's Alki Beach. Throughout all of it, Mary Kay had a singular focus. Now pregnant with her second child, Mary Kay told Terry that she had wanted nothing more in her life than to be a teacher. And she gave the endeavor her all. It was not uncommon to look across the way late at night to see the lights still on at the Letourneau townhouse. At 2, 3, 4, 5 a.m., the lights would shine. Somehow Mary Kay could tap into energy sources unknown to most as she cut pieces of construction paper into pretty shapes for her classroom assignments. She was determined to be the best. In the summer of 1987, Mary Kay, 25, delivered her first daughter at Seattle's Swedish hospital. The blonde-haired baby resembled Steve's side of the family. When Mary Kay held her infant, she looked down on the most beautiful baby girl in the world. In keeping with 8 generations of Irish tradition, like her mother before her, she named her first baby girl Mary Claire. She cuddled her little one as though she wanted the moment to last forever, as though she couldn't let her go. She wanted a closeness with her babies. My mother just wasn't that way, Mary Kay said later. When I'm with my children, they are in my arms, and I'm with them. I sat at my mother's side. That was the way she was. She was the queen, and I was just her daughter. That we're not close doesn't mean that I don't love her, and that she doesn't love me. Terry Simmons wasn't just off the turnip truck. She had been raised in Dallas, for goodness sake. But the woman across the way from Corona del Mar had a sense of style that took her breath away. No matter how scant funds were, Mary Kay Letourneau always looked like $1,000,000. Even with her hair up in a simple ponytail and her lips tinted with bright pink lipstick, there was no one lovelier. Terry admired that style so much. For a while, she even emulated Mary Kay. When they were taken for sisters, it was the greatest compliment Terry had ever known. Mary Kay was a firm believer in the idea that it was better to have one fine thing than a half-dozen average items. Quality over quantity. Clothes were a key example. She'd save up her money and splurge on a garment from Ann Taylor or I. Magnin and wear it until it disintegrated. A green wool short skirt was a particular favorite during the early days at Carriage Row. I'll never forget it. It must have cost a fortune. She wore it all the time. It was better to wear something that was perfect and nice than trash, Terry recalled. Her husband was not that way, at least at that time. Steve would rather have 3 pairs of blue jeans from Target than 1 pair of chinos from the Gap. The Letourneau's townhouse also demonstrated Mary Kay's ideal that a little of the best was better than a lot of the mundane. The furniture was ratty, but some of the accessories were exquisite. crystal and porcelain befitting a family of wealth, not a young couple just starting out in life. Appliances were first-rate, too. The vacuum cleaner in particular impressed Terry. You could ride that sucker. It was so neat. It was the top of the line, had every attachment. And so, in the world according to Mary Kay, there was a lesson that Terry Simmons would take to heart and retain for the rest of her life. You don't have to have everything the best. You can take one piece, one item, and it sort of uplifts everything around it. It was sort of like her. She could walk into a room and the elegance level would sort of rise. It was the cruelest kind of payback that Terry Simmons could have imagined. Why hadn't the Schmitz family, Mary Schmitz in particular, stepped in to help? Mary Kay and Steve Letourneau weren't starving to death, but things were so tight that Mary Kay went most of the winter in a windbreaker because she couldn't afford a warmer coat. Her parents could probably do a little more than they are now with this struggling family. It's awful, Terry thought. They have the money. But as Mary Kay explained it, although she certainly didn't whine about it, her family, some thought, had written her off after she married Steve. Her family had expected better things of her, a better husband, someone more in line with their socioeconomic status. They were sort of punishing her, Terry said later. I don't know what they hoped to gain from that. Terry would never forget the time when Mary Kay got a notice that the post office was holding a package for her. The two went together to get the parcel, addressed to Mary Kay by astrologer and close Schmitz family friend Jean Dixon. Opened at the Carriage Row townhouse, the box held a gorgeous brown wool coat with a trim of sleek black fur. Enclosed was a touching letter from Jean. Mary Kay was so excited, Terry recalled. I don't think it was the coat. I think it was that somebody had mothered her. She loved Jean. Jean Dixon was the only connection she had with anyone on a parental level. Years later, people went looking for answers to why things had turned out as they had. For some, like friend Terry Simmons, it was easy to point to the Schmitz family. She viewed Mary Kay as the tragic product of a family that largely ignored their daughter because she disappointed them by settling for Steve Letourneau. In time, something dire was bound to emerge. I'm surprised it took this long for something to happen, Terry said. With the exception of her brothers and the mention of her estrangement with her mother, Mary Kay seldom discussed the Schmitzes. Tears came when she spoke about Philip and how the family never got over his death. But she never talked about her sisters. Most peculiar of all was Mary Kay's representation of her father. I could swear that she told me he was dead, Terry said later, puzzled because by then she knew it was not true. She would tell me how close they were when she was little. But for some reason, I had it in my head that he was gone. I don't think I would have made it up. I thought in my head all this time that he was dead. Mary Kay never referred to him in the present tense. Maybe if he had shunned her, it was almost easier to say he was dead? Terry speculated. And despite the turmoil of her past and the estrangement from her family, Mary Kay found time for generosity. One gift that she gave Terry Simmons will never be forgotten. It was a beautiful writing journal with a black leather binding accented by red corners, made in France. Mary Kay presented Terry with the journal between classes at the university during one of their carpooling days. It was the perfect gift for the troubled young woman who liked to write and who had a need to pour out the hurt in her heart on pages of paper. Though the gift probably took her last dollar, Mary Kay didn't care. She wanted to make sure that everyone around her that she cared about had the tools they needed to be free, to be liberated, Terry said later. That was Mary Kay Letourneau. Free, encouraging, a giver. Chapter 14. Circumstances would later change perceptions and alter memories, but no one at Gregory Heights Elementary in Burien, Washington, could deny that the pretty young teacher started her career in public education with the kind of brilliance that ensured a remarkable career. Colleagues could easily tick off a list of attributes: creative, enthusiastic, artistic, thoughtful, patient. She was everything any parent would want for their child in a classroom setting. Mary Kay Letourneau, 26, came to the Highline School District 401 in September 1988. It was the third of her student teaching internships. Master teacher Mary Newby saw a great future for Mary Letourneau and would later tell friends that she had benefited from the experience of working with her in her 6th grade class. I loved working with her because I could say something and she'd add a level to it, and then I'd add a level to it. It was a great experience. It expanded my teaching and my thinking. Part of Mary Kay's gift was her enthusiasm. Though in her mid-20s and the mother of 2, she had not lost the sense of wonder and excitement of the learning process. Somehow, she had been able to retain it. We'd talk about something we needed to do, and she'd have fresh ideas and ways of looking at ways to approach it versus the same old stuff. Mary Kay was always prepared, always went the extra mile. She was at ease with the students and they liked her. Only once did Mary Newby see any cause for concern. One time when she was being observed by her college professor. She was very, very nervous, very tired. It was the one time when her lessons didn't seem as thought out. It was still okay, but not as outstanding as she had done before. "Is there something going on?" she asked her. Mary admitted she'd been up very late. She said Steve had been working graveyard at Alaska Airlines, and he wanted her to keep the kids up as late as possible so that they'd sleep for him in the morning. She couldn't start her schoolwork until after they went to bed. It didn't happen again, Mary Newby said later. She didn't offer much more. It was a sleep issue. She was very, now I use the word driven. Back then I thought very committed to doing an outstanding job. Mary Newby knew that her student teacher was pressed for money. Steve Letourneau didn't have a terrific job. Tossing baggage at SeaTac couldn't have paid that much, and Mary Kay indicated that her husband had been pressuring her to do whatever it took to get her teaching certificate so that she could go out and earn some money. No matter what pressures she had from husband Steve, Mary Kay somehow fueled her ambition to do what she wanted, to shift the priorities of the day to suit her sense of importance. Often, that meant setting the bills and worry aside for the fun stuff. With Halloween at hand came the quest for the perfect costume for little Stephen. Mary Kay had decided her little boy would be the quintessential dragon. She outfitted her son in colored high tops, a little green tail, and a pullover. She even attached felt triangles to the back of the pullover. But something was missing. Something kept the costume from perfection. She recruited Terry Simmons to help in the search for the right fabric to finish it off. She wanted his chest area to be covered with green, shimmery stuff to look like scales, Terry recalled many years later. We must have gone to 30 different stores, but we found it and she did it. At the last minute, we had this perfect little dragon. When the hunt was on, there was no stopping Mary Kay. If it meant driving around all day with a car running on empty, it didn't matter to her. If it required circling the globe in the quest of something she envisioned, she'd do it. Making do with something less than that was never an option. Chapter 15. Natalie Bates was one of those who came to celebrate Mary Letourneau's graduation from Seattle University. Mary told her neighbor that it was an informal get-together. The word informal was important to Natalie, who considered herself a jeans and sweats kind of person. To Natalie's surprise, the spring 1989 gathering included Mary Kay's mother and father, just in from Washington, D.C. Natalie wasn't the type to party with strangers, but she was so fond of and so proud of the young woman's accomplishment that she decided to pop over for cake and coffee. It was the only time she'd known Mary Kay's parents to make the trek from back east for a visit. Years later, Natalie couldn't deny that she was a little bit curious about John and Mary Schmitz. Mary had told Natalie that she was not close to her mother. It was really strange. I couldn't believe the mother. She was a nice-looking lady with sort of reddish-brown hair, slender and well-dressed. But I didn't see anything in the way of love over there. It just didn't seem like a family affair. It was like somebody came to tea, and then she was gone, she said later. A lack of interaction between John and Mary Schmitz also struck Natalie Bates as odd. It almost seemed like they weren't connected to each other, bonded like a long-time married couple. No closeness, Natalie recalled. It was years later that Natalie Bates began to wonder what, if anything, could have caused the tragic turn of events that would ruin lives, make people rich, and send a woman to prison. She remembered the graduation party and the cold vibes she picked up from the parents. Then one day the answer came to her. It was so obvious, she thought. It must be a lack of love. Mary didn't get any love. Not from her parents. Not from her husband. If she had had some love from somebody else, maybe Steve, this would never have happened, Natalie said many years later. The relationship with Mary Kay and her parents was complicated, and after a time, Steve's maternal grandmother, Nadine, didn't even try to figure it out. Mary Kay acted like she couldn't stand her mother, and that her mother didn't care about her. Her father was wonderful and could do no wrong. Such descriptions were at odds with what Steve's grandmother heard from Steve, or saw for herself. Steve had told his grandmother that his in-laws didn't have the best marriage. In fact, John Schmitz had fathered 2 illegitimate children with a campaign worker. This was her Prince Charming father? Nadine wondered. Whenever Mary Kay had a baby, Nadine and her daughters would show up with a gift. One time when they were over there, Mary Kay made mention of a present her mother had sent for the new baby. "I got a box from my mom today," she said, looking disgusted. "I wish she'd mind her own business. It was something I wouldn't put on my child." As far as Nadine could see, it was an absolutely beautiful outfit. "How's your dad?" Nadine asked one time. "I don't know," she said. "I talked to my mom, but I didn't ask her." Years later, Nadine would wonder how much Mary Kay's parents knew about her daughter's life in Kent. Mary Kay put on such a pretty face about everything. But it wasn't pretty from where Nadine sat. It was a big front. It was too nicey nice. You've got kids running wild, and you'd say, "Honey, will you take care of the children? Honey, would you see what they're doing now?" Their financial situation was perpetually in dire straits, too. They were always sending home for money. Sharon said it was constant. $200, $300. Telephone service would be cut off. Didn't have food on the table. Where was the money going? They were making over $60,000 a year. Where was it going? They had nothing to show for it. Steve and Mary Kay's chronic lateness was no joke to Steve Letourneau's grandmother. She was the opposite. When she was required to be at work at 5:30, she'd show up at the drug and variety store at 5 just to be safe. But that was her, and she did her best not to fault people for running a little late. But not 2 or 3 hours, as had been the case with Steve and Mary Kay. And not on Christmas. She blamed Mary Kay for the tardiness. That was her. Control. That was her way of controlling. That's like a kid pooping his pants when he's 5, because he's got the control. That's the way Mary was, she said later. But being late for a Christmas celebration and gift exchange, however, would not be tolerated by Steve's grandmother. They knew what time we started. I got the table all set. The little kids were running around and wanting to open presents. How do you explain to a 3-year-old that we can't start yet because Mary Kay's not here? Nadine said later. Everyone was needed on time because the children had drawn names, and if everyone was not there, someone wouldn't get their present. Finally, Nadine couldn't hold it inside and have another Christmas ruined. She confronted Mary Kay over the phone. "No more. I've had it up to my eyebrows. If you want to exchange gifts, you bring the gifts the day before. I don't care if you come from Timbuktu. Bring the gifts over here. At least we will have gifts for the kids," she said. If Mary Kay was an outsider in Steve's family, it didn't matter much to her, and she dealt with it when she had to. Individually, she considered them all right, salt-of-the-earth types. But all of them together in a group was something else. She thought that they carried gigantic chips on their shoulders. "I don't know what it is all about," she told a friend later, "but Steve's family, his mother's side, spend every minute of the day thinking that the world owes them something. It's as if they aren't good enough. There is so much negativity there." When Gregory Heights' 6th grade teacher Mary Newby picked up the phone in the late summer of 1989, It was her former student teacher, Mary Kay Letourneau, calling with a good news, bad news scenario. She had been offered a job teaching second grade at Shorewood Elementary, but she didn't know if she wanted to teach that grade level. She had preferred teaching older kids. The principal, she said, was pressuring her. "Well, you know," the veteran teacher said, "I've taught every grade, and there are wonderful things about each one of them. You'll do fine with second graders. You'll have your foot in the door." Mary Kay said she'd think about it. Chapter 16. Just beyond a church sits Shorewood Elementary School at 2725 Southwest 116th Avenue S, down the hill from the trouble and traffic of Ambaum Boulevard, one of the SeaTac Airport area's busiest streets. The neighborhood is older, with lots of grandma houses, small, single-story homes with mature camellias and driveways without oil stains. In the past few years, some have been torn down to make way for newer, bigger, not nearly as charming homes for a younger crowd of Boeing workers and professionals just trying to get a toehold in the tough Seattle housing market. The neighborhood surrounding the brick and glass block-faced school hasn't changed all that much since the 1950s, when the school was a bastion of middle-class homogeneity. The homes are tidy and the yards clean. No autos growing moss on blocks in the front yards. Shorewood remains far enough from White Center and Burien to feel safe at night, though not as many would walk its streets as they did in the past. Today, the school draws students from a larger area, going far to the east to pick up children who live in low-income housing and fixer-uppers in waiting. Almost a third of the children enrolled at Shorewood are eligible for the free lunch program. The building is unremarkable in a way that makes one wonder if anything, or anyone, of any particular interest could come from such a place. Inside, the school is antiquated, though clean, a victim of falling funding levies. One teacher's father once inquired if the building was condemned. A seagull is the school mascot. Glazed terracotta tiles made by students over the years are inset into the hallway walls. The gymnasium walls are painted with college football team logos from Washington State and the University of Washington. All teachers are white, which belies the ethnic diversity that has taken root over the years. More than 40 languages and dialects are spoken in the Highline School District. At Shorewood, 20% of the students are Asian and Pacific Islander, 6% Black, 4% Hispanic, and the other 2/3 white. 500 students attend the school. 24 teachers stand up in front of their classrooms each day to provide the foundation for the education that will carry their students through the rest of their lives. But in the end, the world would only focus on two, one teacher and one student. When Mary Kay Letourneau arrived to teach second grade in 1989, she brought with her an undeniable and welcome burst of enthusiasm. For the shiny new students in her class, she was Mary Poppins and the Tooth Fairy all rolled into one. The children adored her because she was pretty, young, and, probably most important of all, fun to be around. She invited the children to participate in the process of learning. One teacher who observed her classroom during those early days noticed that Mrs. Letourneau gave her children nearly an unprecedented amount of personal choice when it came to curriculum. Whatever the kids wanted, she allowed. She would constantly rearrange things. She never had a lesson plan book. Well, she did, but it was hardly filled in, and she never followed it because things would change minute by minute or hour by hour, the observing teacher said later, though she admitted, "It seems like when the class had big projects to do, they did get done." Mary Letourneau seemed to thrive on her own chaos, a deliberate chaos in which she was planted firmly in the center of the storm, ready to sort it all out in the end. No matter how long she had to stay up into the night, she could handle it. It suited her personality. The kids liked it. And as time went on, she became known as a creative teacher, one who didn't line things up in neat rows with all the dots connected. For many, that was her charm. It started from day one and escalated only slightly until 1996, when Mary's chaos became a typhoon. I think there was always that disorganization, that comfort level of being able to tolerate more volume than some teachers can. Personally, I think that's one of the reasons some children really adored being in her room. There was not a lot of structure. They got to do a whole lot of things in a different way than they did in a more structured classroom. They were given a lot of different choices, said one friend from the school. There was a price for the charm and personality that made Mrs. Letourneau's reputation as a fun and creative teacher. It was a price paid by other teachers. Mary Kay almost never made it to a meeting on time, from the very beginning of her tenure at Shorewood. When she'd arrive late for class, she'd shrug it off with a laugh and a look that all harried mothers know. Daycare problems, you know. It was nothing for Mary to phone a staff member after 11 in the evening to check on something related to an event or project. In truth, few minded. They understood that with 2, 3, then 4 children, she had her hands full at home. From what her colleagues could tell, Steve almost always worked nights and often on the weekends, leaving his wife with a lion's share of the day-to-day family responsibilities. She had to feed the children, put them to bed, and get them ready for school the next day. If she was at wit's end getting everything done, then she was like a million other working mothers. Mary had a reputation for staying up all night working on report cards for conferences and barely finishing them as the parents walked into the classroom. Receipts turned into the office for reimbursement were noted not because of their requested sums, but for the time noted on the bottom. Kinko's copies, 2 a.m. According to Mary, late-night hours had been a way of life for her, even as a young girl. It was the Schmitz way. And later in life, she said, it was nothing for her to call her mother or sister after midnight to find out they were just clearing the dinner dishes. Mary Kay was from a family of night owls. But Steve was never a part of that life, that late-night rhythm, she said later. Partly because of his work, but also because he just didn't function the way the rest of us did. The kids understood it. We all did. One teacher who taught some of Mary's former students noticed that every other paper was wrinkled and had coffee and food stains spilled onto them. The stack of papers looked more like garbage than a sheaf of schoolwork. But in time, over the years of missed meetings and unfulfilled staff responsibilities, there was the feeling that Mary Letourneau was given special privileges. She was given more slack than just about anyone at Shorewood. One time, when she was scheduled to give a portion of a presentation at a staff meeting, she did not arrive. "Oh, you know Mary. She's on Mary's time," said the principal, as if being on time was not important. Others had families, too. Others had places to go. It was irritating and unfair. But even so, for the most part, the staff liked her. She was so very likable. When his wife made the move from one classroom to another, Steve Letourneau came to Shorewood to help. Her room was overloaded with stuff another teacher wouldn't imagine saving. There were papers that she had from kids 2 and 3 years prior. These kids are 5th graders now. Why do you want to hang on to that? It was something tangible she wanted to keep, said a teacher who was there the day of a classroom move. It was also a sign of a woman so on the go she didn't have time for the most rudimentary of housekeeping chores. A cat box in the corner of the classroom was fetid with feces. The cat Mary had adopted to help illustrate a story she was reading with the class had been gone for more than a year.
If we have, like, Negro educators, forget the raping children part for, just put that to the side. Just if you think, as a Negro educator, if you think you can just show up late all the time, you're not even on CP time. You got specific, you on Leroy time. Yeah. They ain't even general. This is just you. She on Mary Kay time. What? How are you? What? And then they say, sometimes you don't even show up at all. You got papers and schoolwork they say look like a stack of garbage. What Negro educator is, and then at the same time, that's what I say, the contradictions. At the same time, they say, oh man, Mary Kay is brilliant. Woo. Is it a stack of garbage on her desk? Or is she brilliant? Now, I'm going to say this first and foremost. We have neutralizing workplace racism Thursdays, did so yesterday, every Thursday. Gus T has said for some time, if you can't be early, be on time. If you can't be early, be on time. Mary Kay, I don't even show up, much less be on time. And then sometimes I'm 2 hours late. Well, what does it mean to be white? Do we have any Negro teachers at all? That's how you roll. School year start in September. Maybe I show up. Maybe I don't. School day start at 9. Maybe I get here at 1 p.m. You see how it go. And then you get special. Do we have any Negro educators? 720-716-7300. The code 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. The email untiljustice@gmail.com. Let's see, folks who dialed in. If we missed you totally and you have commentary to share, do not wait till the last minute, especially if you are on the phone line. Star 61, hand up if you have commentary to share. Let's see, folks who were with us. Shamika Harris, Mr. Douglas should be with us. In fact, I'll steal one quick email that I don't think is too long, and then we'll get folks who dialed in as well. Email number 2, caller writes in, hi Gus, Cow's audience. Number 1, I did not make the link to racism when I first heard about the child rapist Mary Kay Letourneau, nor have I heard or read any suggestion that racism was a factor in this crime. 2, I also had no idea that she was the daughter of a senator. 3, when we read the Mary Kay's baby brother drowned, the first thought that came into my mind was that her mother killed him, especially as she found his body. Yes, children drown accidentally, so it's possible, but the family was dysfunctional and her mother abusive. I also think Mary Kay's mother was jealous that the father doted on Mary Kay, and that was the reason for her neglect. Although if he was really doting on her or the other children, would not have been living in squalor. 4, yet again, we see that white people will come up with reasons to justify white crimes and deviance. There is no doubt that losing your brother as a child would lead to some level of trauma, but how is that justification for raping Vili Fualaau? Well, she didn't rape him now. Michelle would be more credible if she had said Mary Kay became a predator and pedophile because she was molested as a child. Still no justification, but perhaps more logical. 5, I don't know where to begin with Carla Stuckle. The callousness has me dumbfounded. She had the baby boy to trap Mary Kay's father, then tortured the child to get the father. White people don't care. 6, political people normally have their pick of the litter, so to speak. Why would he pick something like that? The only thing that occurred to me was that she had to be a demon in bed. She's being interviewed because she tortured her baby, and here again, another police officer thinking about sex. What does it mean to be white? Facts. 7, I guess it's business as usual for a politician to espouse family values only to find out they are the most amoral, and white women are happy with pretending to have loving husbands who are either having affairs, secretly gay, and or raping children. All of the above. Hey, they mentioned old no-count racist suspect Hillary Clinton. Said, you remember how she had that adoring look at old Slick Willie? Now, did she have that adoring look knowing about Monica Lewinsky? I've been told Hillary Clinton ain't no dummy. Ivy League educated. I've been told Hillary Clinton is smarter than Bill Clinton, substantially smarter than Bill Clinton, who also has Ivy League education. So I'll say again, so was she doting and looking lovingly, almost like Nancy looking at Ronald Reagan that we heard about in the text? Was she looking lovingly while being ignorant about Monica Lewinsky? If John Schmitz's wife wasn't ignorant, I don't think Hillary was ignorant either, nor do I think Thomas Jefferson's wife, wasn't that Martha? I don't think she was ignorant about his child raping ways either. Ignorant white people. 8. There was no question John Schmitz had lied with the same facility as he employed when he told the truth. It is possible there is some of that in John. It is possible that Mary Kay could be that way too. She demonstrated this when she coolly lied to the police when she was caught raping. Would you keep saying that, man? You to saying rape? She was loving on Vili tenderly. They were fishing and enjoying the moonlight in Seattle. 9. I never got the sense that Mary truly loved John. I saw them together a lot at political fundraisers. Have you ever watched Hillary Clinton looking at Bill Clinton? That gaze, two more pathological liars. I wonder if this was before the Monica Lewinsky affair and all the rest. Facts. Facts. Get out of here. All that ain't no love in the system of white. Said they truly ain't no love in the system of white supremacy racism. Period. White people don't even like other white people. They fuss and brawl and fight with other white people all the time. So I mean, whatever. Much obliged. Let's see. Folks who dialed in, hand up. All the folks who are with us first time around should be with us. Other folks, if you have commentary to share, don't malinger. Hand up now. Let's see. Shamika Harris, Mr. Douglas, I think Helen in New York. I'll look out for other hands.
May I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Evening again, everyone. Right at the beginning there, when Mary Kay was losing her son Stephen in the apartment, I thought that was weird. She said, "Have you seen my son Stephen?" she asked. Joe said he hadn't. He put down his tools. You know, they start looking for the kid. And it seems like she loses her son on a regular basis. He said she's a sweet lady, but only by the grace of God has that little boy made it as far as he has. And he talks about, like, finding him watching the heavy equipment on the edge of a construction site. I also wondered, like, if he was in an apartment complex with a black lady who kept losing her children, would he have reacted the same way, or might he have called CPS? Let's see. That lady who met her in the apartments, her name was Terry. She said Terry was talking about when she first meets Mary Kay. And she says, "We were like those little fish and bobbers," Terry remembered sometime later. "We were all by ourselves, and we happened to bump into each other, and we stuck. Neither one of us had any friends. We were very fortunate to have found each other." And, well, she said we were all by ourselves, but Mary Kay is married, and she had produced offspring at that point, so I don't know. Let me see. She has the second baby, and it said, "In keeping with 8 generations of Irish tradition, like her mother before her, she named her first baby girl Mary Claire." I commented on that earlier, so I guess it's cool to get an explanation on that one. And then she said, "My mother just wasn't that way," Mary Kay said later. "When I'm with my children, they're in my arms and I'm with them. I sat at my mother's side. That was the way she was. She was the queen and I was just her daughter. That we were not close doesn't mean that I don't love her and that she doesn't love me." And I don't know, I'm not sure if that statement she made was accurate. Like, is she losing her children sometimes? or are they always in her arms? I don't know what to make of that. The vacuum with all the attachments, I thought their house was not clean. So I don't know if she's using that vacuum cleaner. So when Jean Dixon sends her the coat, she seems pretty excited about it. But when her mom sends something for the children, she did not seem too excited about it and said she would not put it on her child. The all the stuff for the Halloween costume, riding around all day looking for some sequins or whatever when the gas tank is on empty, that does not sound cool to me. It sounds super irresponsible. And being late on Christmas, you cannot be 3 hours late on white Jesus' birthday. I'm surprised it wasn't a much bigger deal than it was. And that's all I have for right now. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Can't be early. Be on time. Especially for the holiday. They might have fisticuffs. You done delayed chitlins, gifts, children become unruly, eggnog gets sour. Oh man. Gonna be some profanities on white Jesus, but 3 hours late? They said leave your gifts out on the curb the day before. Leave your gifts out on the curb the day before. That way we will proceed. We won't even worry about your tardiness. You can't be early. Be on time. Mr. Douglas, if you have commentary.
Yes, sir. When they talked about her teaching, I thought of a young academic who has called into the program and described the difficulties and various obstacles he's faced as he has pursued a career as a teacher. To my knowledge, he's never done any of the things that she has done. And if she messed up her presentation with her teacher, she's always late. She's got the dirty room with the cat feces from, I think, was over a year ago. She missed that meeting where she's supposed to give the presentation. She has an unstructured class. My question is, how effective of a teacher was she? We keep getting these contradictory statements or just stories, where you get the one where it says, oh, she was so lovely and she was so on top of everything and she's so knowledgeable and intelligent. And then, we get the contradictory story where it talks about how, well, she didn't do this and she didn't do that and she's not, in control of anything. And, so it's a really, I don't know. It's interesting the way this book is going so far with these contradictory statements. Again, white people don't care about children. She was more worried about her son's costume than his whereabouts, but, it kind of reminded me, it was like a repeat of the swimming pool incident. It seemed like her, where her mother was not aware of where her son was and ended up at the bottom of the pool, but then again, their whole, from earlier in the story, in the book, talks about how, it seems like the parents really didn't care too much about the kids either, where they were. She's, going out with her friends at college parties when she's in high school, and, the parents were more concerned about what they were doing than what their kids were doing. Give me just 1 second. Again, white people always get the benefit of the doubt. They don't ever do anything wrong. Even when they do something wrong, it's not a big deal. And just to kind of echo Ms. Lauren said, had she been black, Stephen would have been confiscated and sent to live with some white lesbian couple, and then it got me thinking about, how they were always short of cash. Now, I know that Steve worked as a baggage handler, but whatever money they were using, they're not spending it responsibly. So, are they spending too much money on these lavish items? And then it got me thinking too, Steve is a white man who's had some college. I think it may have been mentioned on the phrase waste of white skin. I think it may have been mentioned on the program before. And it got me thinking, was he a waste of white skin? I mean, he's a white man. He can't get a better job than handling the baggage. I mean, I don't know what they pay, but it doesn't sound like from the description in the book that it's a lucrative opportunity, so. But that's all I have for right now. Thank you.
Shame on you, Mr. Douglas. He come out on July 4th and be messed around and sent off to live with some white lesbians. Oh, shame on you, Mr. Douglas. Guy says Vontae rolling over in his grave on that one. Abigail, Sierra, what did you send to live with the white lesbians? Live with the white lesbians. Much obliged, Mr. Douglas. I didn't think of We Were Once a Family, which certainly would be applicable. Dorothy Roberts, applicable. Malcolm X, applicable. I thought of Rena, Venus, Richard Williams, Black and White, The Way I See It, which we did read in the Katherine Massey book club, as well as all of those other books. But we read that one too. And he said, oh man, they called social services on us. You saw it. They dramatized it in the movie. That old no-count Will Smith won an Oscar and cut a fool at the award ceremony. But they called social services. We got to come in and investigate with race soldier enforcement officials. Make sure you don't wild out too much, old Richard Williams, privileged black male, potential rapist. But oh yeah, we know how to deal with niggers. Act like you abused a child and what have you. Now, if that had been white Richard Williams, that would not have been a chapter in the book, I don't think. A little bit shorter. But lots of times I can say, yes, be a nigger, male or female. Get accused of, we found something wrong with your child's penis. Or, the child fell in the pool. Or, where's Leroy? Has anybody? Oh, he's at the construction site. See what happens. Let's see. Let me get back to email I did not finish. This is the rest of email number 1. Chapter 12. Sharon had yet to meet her son's bride. Nadine cooked day and night, spruced up her mobile home, and set a pretty table. I've heard the term trailer trash used to describe suspected racist, a term I never use. He had waste of white skin, too. Chapter 13. Oddly enough, he never doubted that Mary loved Stephen or her other children. She was a good mother. What? See, we get the contradictions again now. Was she a good mother? Or did she just let the... Where is... You seen... Well, Steve, is he what? Oh, he at the construction. Oh, come on now. We don't need the search party no more. We got him. Thank y'all. Now, is that good mothering? That's the same thing the police officer, because they said Mary is a good person. She just made a few bad decisions, and the police officer said, "Man, I don't. What is your definition of a good person? A good person does not rape children. Facts, my white sister with the badge. Facts, man. What's your definition of a good person?" Fuller say, we don't have no such thing as good people, good mothers, good fathers. We don't have none of that. System of whites, we don't have no love neither. Good mother. Except for losing track of her progeny. That might be number 1 on the list if you're a good parent or not. Do you know where your child is? Around here somewhere. We got... We get him. We got the GPS now, so we get him. Come on. There was a busy street, and they were building some apartments. We find him washing the heavy equipment at the edge of the construction site with no hard hat on. Not doubting she's a good mother. She's blonde, So she's a good mother, practically no matter what she does. I think she's a terrible mother and a terrible teacher and a terrible person. Maybe she's a good race soldier. Number 2, Mary Kay was a firm believer in the idea that it was better to have one fine thing than a half dozen average items. The Letourneau's townhouse also demonstrated Mary Kay's ideal. The furniture was ratty, but some of the accessories were exquisite. She wanted to make sure everyone around her that she cared about had the tools they needed to be free. I don't even know what that means. Was it being free or issuing chaos? Was it encouraging or superficiality? Was she a giver or manipulative? Signs of psychopathy, perhaps. Wisdom of Psychopaths, read that one too. Chapter 14. Mary Kay had decided her little boy would be the quintessential dragon. We must have gone to 30 different stores. There was no stopping Mary Kay. If it required circling the globe in quest of something she envisioned, she'd do it. Is this an example of the dedication required to maintain the global system of white supremacy? See the book club, The Wisdom of Psychopaths. Echo, Kevin Dutton. Chapter 15. Letourneau's graduation from Seattle University. I've been there. Lack of interaction between John and Mary Schmitz also struck Natalie Bates as odd. Then one day the answer came to her. It was so obvious she thought it must be a lack of love. Ain't no love in the global system of racism, white supremacy, so she became a sexual predator because she did not receive any love from her trifling parents? 2. Steve and Mary Kay's chronic lateness was no joke to Steve Letourneau's grandmother. She was the opposite. When she was required to be at work at 5:30, she showed up at the drug and variety store at 5 just to be safe. What that coon Gus T say? You can't be early, be on time. She doesn't listen to the cows, but same logic. Being on time for work was always emphasized by Mr. Fuller for victims. Fuller said he worked 30 years at the Federal Government Bureau of Printing and Engraving and was never late one time. That is codification. 3. Being late for Christmas celebration and gift exchange, however, would not be tolerated by Steve's grandmother. My race soldier co-workers put a lot of emphasis on family celebrations for Christmas. Celebrate Christmas at this one's house the day before and this one's house the day of, and then we have a third one at our own home. They all seem to live near one another in these little racially restricted towns. It seems like it causes them a lot of stress. It's a big deal, man. It's a big deal. Chapter 16, lots of liquor too. 88, almost a third of the children enrolled at Shorewood are eligible for the free lunch program. The school is antiquated. All teachers are white. All teachers are white. All teachers are white and probably mostly female, which belies the ethnic diversity that has taken root over the years. A bunch of race soldier teachers with non-white children. It did say 2/3 of the children were white, so still mostly white children. No surprise that there's going to be abuse. For sure. 2. One teacher who observed her classroom during those early days noticed that Miss Letourneau gave her children nearly an unprecedented amount of personal choice. There was not a lot of structure. Former students noticed that every other paper was wrinkled and had coffee and food stains spilled onto them. Stacks of paper looked like garbage. She was given special privileges. She was given more slack. Didn't have time for most rudimentary of housekeeping chores. She was a terrible teacher. What were the test scores of the kids in her classroom? I was thinking that exactly. Like, what? Can we follow, like, where did these kids end up tracking, like high school and all of it? Man. With particularly the Vilis in this group. They said it was only about 6% black children, so not too many Leroys and Lakeishas, but where did the Vilis, where did the non-white children that were in her unstructured class that was so fun and she was so brilliant with garbage on the desk, what happened to these children? Who knows? Let's see. I did not even really do my notes for either time. I do want to make sure that I get in Al-Kai Beach. Like I said, I would have been weeping the whole time if I was still in lame, hellish Milwaukee while we were reading this book. How many programs that I do at Al-Kai Beach told you all it's the lamest beach in Seattle. I still think Al-Kai Beach is probably better than most of the beaches I saw in Milwaukee. Definitely. Like, now that I'm reminiscing, definitely. Al-Kai Beach is better than most of the beaches that I visited in Milwaukee. Any hoodles. I'm glad I didn't bump into Mary Kay at Al-Kai. No, I'm just going kind of random because I didn't really share any of my notes. Right, chapter 12. Oh, wait a minute. Chapter 13, they had the condominium complex called Carriage Row. I bet they do not have lots of non-white people, particularly black people, who reside there, even though more non-white people live. The percentage concentration of non-white people goes up the further south you get away from Seattle. Kent is south from Seattle, although not that far. Let's see. She loses her children all the time. They found them at the construction site. Great metaphor, I think Lauren pointed out. Not a lot of chalk on that blackboard, for sure. Metaphor of white supremacy. Terry Simmons wasn't just off the turnip truck. They have a number of curious metaphors in the text. Let's see. They said Mary Kay Letourneau always looked like $1 million to Terry Simmons, even with her hair up in a simple ponytail. Her looking elegant or brilliant or beautiful always seems to immediately come back to her blonde hair. Like every time, and most of the time, the blondness is stated explicitly. Let's see. The elegance of the gorgeous coat that Mary Kay got from Jeannie Dixon. It is an elegant, sleek black fur. I thought that was another one of those Welsing moments you all have pointed out throughout the text. Let's see. And then even they got the gifts that are really appreciated. Terry Simmons, she got this amazing journal with the black leather binding. Dr. Welsing talked about that exactly in the ISIS papers. Let's see. Chapter 14. Tossing baggage at SeaTac. That is one where they have a lot of niggers. Now, they don't allow Lakeisha and Leroy to actually fly the plane, but they will allow you to go out and pick up suitcase and toss it onto the rack. They'll let you do that for as they stated, for very few nickels. That might be a waste of white skin, too, if you mess around and get one of those type nigger jobs, like Steve had, apparently. Let's see. Just white people do not care about children. You even see it into adulthood. Like she talks about the parents stop by, Mary Kay's parents stop by. Like, hey, okay, we got to go. Dang, I thought your parents, are they got a hotel? They left? They gone? When they coming back? You don't know? Well, dang. Like, okay. They don't want to play with the grandchildren or, let's see. Let's see. We got the lateness. Folks commented on that. Chapter 16. It sounds like they're describing the so-called white flight when this area was more homogeneous, probably exclusively white, and then you have an influx of non-white people, particularly non-white, non-black people, into this region, work, all of the rest of it, industry work, all that. They have lots of factories in the Seattle area too, port region, because it's on the water. Let's see. And then you have a lot of Asian and Pacific Islanders who probably are not that skilled at English. These might be first, second generation folks. Vili's situation, very vulnerable. That's why I said the racism in all this in terms of who Mary Kay would pick to victimize. That V word again. Let's see. I too thought about what young academic would think about all of this. Like, dang, did your desk look like this? Or people go by and say, dang, young academic, your desk look like you just got all this trash tossed everywhere. And oh my God, the children's papers, you got all your Juicy Juice stains on it, and Capri Sun and Mad Dog stains on everything with it. Jesus, don't let me ease on all the CP time. They don't have to go to no young academics. I mean, that's typical nigger time, see. Is that how you behaved while you were, going through the teaching? Do you remember other black people behaving like that as they were going through the teaching profession? I'd never even heard this. Like, people didn't even, they just talk about Mary Kay and love gone wrong or love soured or, it's just love got to love. Instead of rose breaking through the concrete, love just conquers all, even age, see. That would sound like Woody. Remember? We read old Woody, remember? Anyway, I'd never heard all this about, dang, she's not even a quality teacher. Like, we might even have affirmative action right here, getting some no-count white teacher and swearing to us that she's brilliant, meanwhile she's raping children. Repeatedly. Recalcitrant. Anything else I got to get up before we wrap? I didn't really get my notes from the first portion, but Jesse Helms. And I did note that as well. Science has another cult. They even said Jerry wasn't no zombie. We heard all about them Jonestown zombie Negroes, but they say he wasn't no zombie. And Scientology and Jonestown do get mentioned quite a bit together. The California connection, lots of connections. Might even be interesting to see if the Schmitz clan, did they have any contact with Jim Jones? If they're in California in the 70s, like they would kind of be hobnobbing, like Jim Jones knew all the big wigs and politicians and all that in California at that time. So is there, especially if they got a child in Scientology, like, oh man, is there some Jim Jones overlap in any way? We'll have to see. Anywho, more to come. I wish I had, this book's been out a while by Gregg Olsen, so I wish I had not been niggerish when Fuller gently, wait a minute. You are in Seattle and you don't know about Mary Kay? Heavens. I got that in there for a reason, Gus T. Talking about still learning. I should have said, yes, Fuller, I'm still learning. Ignorant. So much to learn. I'm going to get a book on Mary Kay so I can learn a lot. Then I would say, oh my Lord, the John Birch and Jesse Hamlin, what? Scientology, what? I would have had a lot more to. Then I could have said, Dr. Welsing, what do you think about Mary Kay? Lots more to say about all of this. Compensating now. We'll resume next Friday. Save your fingers and toes. No fireworks. The sobriety would be best too. Matter of fact, if you got children, make sure your children, they should not be ignorant about Mary Kay. Save your children's fingers and toes as well. They try and get out there with whoa. You're going to need to write or swipe for many, many decades beyond 5 minutes of bang, pop, boom, battle simulation. You might want to do a little typing, write a grant. Who knows? Sign your child's birth certificate. Who knows? A lot of important things. Fingers are important, right? Right? All right. And they're going to have them sobriety checkpoints. So sobriety would be best. We'll be here tomorrow. Compensatory call in. Hopefully we'll have safe reports of how we made it through the night. Creator, we ask that you help us maximize our time and energy to replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Remind us not to waste non-white people's time and energy, especially our own. Stop name-calling black people. Stop throwing down trash where black people live, work, go to school, Mary Kay. No gossiping. No throwaway non-white offspring to be sexually sewered, trashed by white people like Mary Kay Letourneau. Rufus King School in Milwaukee. Same thing. Rufus King High School in Milwaukee, because that's about the same age. That's a little bit old. That's, you know, like I'm a little bit younger than that, but same thing. Rufus King High School in Milwaukee. If the lead don't get you, white women will. Cal signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed.
I'm a victim, brother.
Problem. You're a victim.
I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning.
Shut up.
The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.